American Comics. God-level ability, can hit infinitely. Chapter 41. After the Battle of New York. Kamar Taj all returned to calm. Everything has nothing to do with their gang of dusty magicians. Even the psychic scepter was handed over to the Avengers. For others, psychic scepters can be treasures. For them, it is of no use at all. So Li Xuan gave the big magician without any hesitation. Then the big magicians taught this magic thing. Then, Kamar Taj naturally returned to calm. Li Xuan also returned to peaceful practice. But, this time he gained a lot, and he made a lot of contributions. The big magicians promised that when Sorcerer Supreme returns, Sorcerer Supreme can give him magic. This made Li Xuan very excited. That's Ancient One. There are too many magic skills. Any one of them is extremely powerful. Li Xuan was looking forward to it. This day, Li Xuan is practicing in her room. With the blessing of God-level ability, his strength grew very fast. His current strength, to say the least, is at the level of a great magician. Ordinary people probably don't know how many years it takes to reach this level. Li Xuan achieved it in just 1 year. But, Li Xuan still felt a little insufficient. Whether it is Odin or Ancient One, Li Xuan feels that they can easily crush him. Even Thanos. Li Xuan is no opponent now. Let's not talk about these guys who are famous in the universe. Even Thor, Li Xuan felt inferior. People Thor can resist the energy irradiation of neutron stars, and can use his own physical strength to directly shake planet-level equipment. Can Li Xuan do it now? Cannot. Li Xuan knew this, so he didn't think he was very powerful. No, I have to continue learning magic. Li Xuan thought in his heart. Li Xuan didn't have any hesitation, so he stopped practicing and walked out of his room. Soon, he came to Aldrich. It turned out to be a book. Why didn't you practice in your own room, but came to me instead? Aldrich asked with a smile. As such that, I want to come here and learn new magic from the teacher. Li Xuan said respectfully. Li Xuan said this. The smile on Aldrich's face froze directly. What the hell? Learning new magic. Don't you kid think you're not perverted enough? Still learning new magic. I'm afraid even the big magician isn't this kid's match right now. Still learning new magic. More critically, he has nothing to teach. He's just an ordinary magician. There are only so many things I know. Li Xuan still has to learn. What does he teach? He is not an existence like Sorcerer Supreme. The power of magic is endless, and the magic he knows is even more immeasurable. This kid is so perverted, how can he teach him? Moreover, Li Xuan's strength has been demonstrated before. Then the huge amounts of mothership are not opponents, what can he do? But, Aldrich is saving face. Xuan, this thing, we have to draw it slowly. Well, I'll go back and think about it and see what magic he taught you, okay? Aldrich discussed. Li Xuan thought about it and said. Then trouble Mr. Aldrich. After Li Xuan saluted respectfully, he turned and left. Aldrich watched Li Xuan turn and leave with a smile, and waited until Li Xuan's back was gone. His expression immediately became tense. Without further ado, he turned around and left. Apparently, he went to someone for help. This student, he can't teach. Aldrich now feels that there is nothing this apprentice cannot do. He naturally wanted to find someone who could teach him. It is clear. The Sorcerer Supreme is not here, only great magicians are qualified to teach this kind of genius. Without further ado, Aldrich came to the big magician. But what he didn't expect was. There are a lot of big magicians here, including Modu, Caecilius, Hamel, and Wang. These are the 4 strongest magicians among Kamar Taj. As soon as Aldrich came in, the 4 big magicians looked at Aldrich. It turned out to be Aldrich. What's the matter? Modu, who was sitting in the first seat, asked. That's right, Mordo magician. Aldrich glanced at Wang before slowly speaking. I'm here for Li Xuan. I'm a little talented, and I really can't teach this student. I want to ask the big magician for help. Aldrich spoke. Hearing this, several big magicians had different expressions. Lian Wang, that serious guy, spoke without any hesitation. Ahem, since it looks like this. Then I'll do what I can, and keep Li Xuan under my door. Bah! What a beautiful idea. You thick eyebrows and big eyes think very well. HMPH, daydreaming. A big magician spread out from the side, and they all spoke without any hesitation. Aldridge. Mordo over there glanced at Aldridge, coughed and said. Wang, it's not like you don't know your teaching level. Li Xuan taught you that you are misleading your son, or let me work hard. Modu sighed, and said in a sense of loss. The three big magicians immediately looked at Modu. Good guy. No wonder he is a big disciple. They can't learn such a shameless skill. Modu, this statement is wrong. This kind of thing, you are so busy, how can you add another burden? Let me come. Even the very cold Caecilius spoke. It's not right. You are all battle magicians, everything is busy, I am more leisurely, it is more appropriate for me to teach this child. Hamel also said with a smile. In your dreams. It's a poor place for you to study magician, isn't it delaying the children? What fighting power can you have? Wang Li immediately retorted. That's right, Wang's words are quite good. You are not battle magicians, what's the use of such a genius? Modu said. Hey, you three still wear a pair of pants, right? If it wasn't for me, how could your fighting power be so strong? Which one of you hasn't learned the magic I studied? Now are you talking about this? That's what I said, I'm going to order Li Xuan as an apprentice today. Hamel spoke loudly. You're thinking about shit. Wishful thinking. Daydreaming. The three big magicians spoke in unison. That's all. In front of Aldridge, the three actually quarreled. Aldridge looked dumbfounded. The four big magicians, that is Kamar Taj's apex, that is a very face-saving existence. But now, for Li Xuan, the one who quarreled was blushing. This might be a fight. Is this genius? Aldridge remembered that when he entered the door, it was not like this. The kid Li Xuan's ability is too perverted, right? Even the big magician can't hold it. A dispute between four great magicians. In the end, Mordo won. First, he is the disciple who has taught Ancient One for the longest time, so he is naturally the strongest. The second is that he is good at teaching apprentices. The other big magicians are naturally unable to compete with Modu. So they finally decided that Modu would teach Li Xuan. Make a decision and have nothing to say the next day. Modu asked Aldridge to take him to meet Li Xuan. Actually, Modu had only met Li Xuan once before. He has heard of Li Xuan's reputation. As for Li Xuan's genius, he has heard about it, but has never seen it with his own eyes. But Mordo is also a smart man. Think about it. Even Caecilius, who has always been very calm, began to seek Li Xuan as an apprentice. Even if Li Xuan is not so exaggerated, it must be unusual, and his subordinates will not lose at all. Who wouldn't want such a genius apprentice? So the next day, Modu was very impatient and asked Aldridge to take them to Li Xuan. So, Li Xuan was also very surprised when Aldridge brought Modu over. Big magician, Mr. Aldridge. Teacher, why did you bring the big magician here? Li Xuan asked. Ahem, that's right. I think you are a genius, and you specially asked the magician of Modu to come and teach you in person. In this way you can get better development. Aldridge said with a sigh. Hearing this, Li Xuan was a little moved. Aldridge was really nice to him. Over there, Modu couldn't help the corners of his mouth twitching. Good guy. Unexpectedly, they, Kamar Taj, still have such a shameless talent. Obviously you can't teach it. Say it like this now. Learned. Modu learned it directly. Therefore, he also said in an inscrutable way. I also pity that you are a genius. I want to teach you personally. I don't know what you want in Xuan. If you let me teach you, I can teach you all of Kamar Taj's magic, except for the unique magic mastered by Sorcerer Supreme. Modu said very proudly. As the first person under Sorcerer Supreme, he has this capital. Li Xuan looked at Aldridge. If he wants to be a teacher, he must agree with Aldridge. This is the duty of being a human being. Xuan, that doesn't have to be the case, as long as you agree. Big magician, teach you, this is a rare opportunity. Aldridge said with great relief. Then since the big magician speaks like this, naturally I won't be ungrateful. I also ask the big magician to give me more advice in the future. Li Xuan said very modestly. Hearing that, Li Xuan agreed. Modu almost laughed out loud. Such a genius as an apprentice, the magician of Kamar Taj doesn't want it. This is simply pie in the sky. Modu happily pinched his back from behind, then kept calm, and said lightly. Go, follow me to the mirror space, I'll see how your foundation is. Say something. With a swipe of Modu's hand, the door of the mirrored space opened, and the three of them directly entered the mirrored space. Xuan, how is your basic magic learning? Modu asked very kindly. To the great magician, my mastery of basic magic is not bad. Li Xuan spoke very modestly. He really felt that the basic magic he had mastered was like this. Whether compared with Sorcerer Supreme, or compared with you big magicians, he is not as good now. This is also certain. How long have other magicians practiced? Don't look at Modu and the others, they look like middle-aged people in their 30s or 40s. But in fact, Modo Xiao said that he would be 70 or 80 years old. It took them decades to practice basic magic, and Li Xuan only studied it for a year. Naturally, he didn't feel that he could compare now. But, after a while, he will easily crush this group of magicians, even Sorcerer Supreme and Li Xuan are not afraid. However, Modu didn't know. He really thought that what Li Xuan had mastered was nothing more than that. After all, he had never seen Li Xuan make a move either. So, with a faint smile on his face, he spoke. Come on, show me a demonstration, and I can give you some pointers, too. Modu said very proudly. Then asked the big magician for advice. Li Xuan nodded and walked to the side. Talking. He just closed his eyes. In the next moment, a huge amount of mental power condensed. A magic shield appeared directly in his hand. Modu nodded secretly. Not bad. This magic has stable energy and reasonable structure, which is very good. But the next moment, the expression on Modu's face couldn't hold back anymore. Base. Several voices sounded. The magic shield in Li Xuan's hand changed from 1 to 2, then 2 to 4, and turned into 32 magic shields in the blink of an eye, floating in the sky. Modu. What is this? Can the magic shield still play like this? How did you solve the interference problem between the magic shield? Modu pinched himself hard, took a breath, and kept his expression from collapsing. This is not over yet, Li Xuan said again. Big magician, I'm going to make a move now. Modu. Lying grass. Didn't you just make a move? He hadn't had time to be surprised yet. Li Xuan made a move. The 32 shields in his hand directly integrated insanely, directly forming a shield with incomparably huge amounts of shield. Li Xuan said nothing. The huge amounts of shield in his hand was thrown out directly. Boom. A mushroom cloud rose directly into the sky. It was as if a small nuclear bomb had exploded. Small mushroom clouds dyed the sky red. Big magician, I'm late, can you give me some pointers? Li Xuan looked at Modu eagerly. Modu felt a pain in his heart. How does this make him point? What else does this point to? His magic shield doesn't even have this level. After all, who, like a psycho, has always been basic magic? Basic magic is used to lay the foundation, and they will definitely practice advanced magic in the future. Li Xuan just didn't think about it. He thought that everyone was the same as him, practicing basic magic every day. This also caused his foundation to be extremely solid, perhaps not even as good as the original Sorcerer Supreme. Modu, he sat on the wax all of a sudden. The expression on his face hardened. He thought so. Li Xuan has not been exposed to magic for a long time, and the basic magic is nothing more than that. It's really not bad. But what the hell is that? Does Sorcerer Supreme have this level? Is this kid a monster? In such a short time, basic magic has reached this level. Do you want to let a big magician like him live? In Modu's heart, for a moment, he had the urge to cry. Mordo was very distressed. It never occurred to him. To teach a little magician, how did it become like this? Modu was stunned for a moment, like a philosopher. It was really Li Xuan, who made him a little confused. An ordinary magic shield abruptly made him play high-level magic. This ability. Hiss. This subclass is me. Modu shuddered, and his expression softened when he looked at Li Xuan. However, seeing Li Xuan's expectant expression, Mordo was a little embarrassed. This magic, he can't point it out. In terms of magic shields, Li Xuan has gone to the extreme. What can he say? However, a big magician is a big magician after all, and he is still very qualified. As soon as he rolled his eyes, Modu had an idea. Xuan, your magic shield is very good, and you have your own opinions. At this time, it is inconvenient for me to give pointers. If your path deviates because of my guidance, then it's my fault. The road to the strong is all walked out. As long as you practice hard, you will naturally gain something. Modu stood there with a lonely expression on his face. Even Aldridge couldn't tell for a while whether the big magician was real or just pretending. But, follow his experience. When showing this expression, most of them are pretending. Aldridge kept slandering in his heart. It didn't attract the attention of the other two people. They are all thinking in their own way. Li Xuan was thinking about what kind of magic he should learn. Without hesitation, Li Xuan asked directly. Big magician, since my foundation is fine, what kind of magic should I learn? Li Xuan asked. What kind of magic should I learn? No, you shouldn't ask that, you should ask what magic do you want to learn? Modu said very proudly. The corner of Li Xuan's mouth twitched. Good guy. This one is also pretending enough. But hearing what Modu said, he was also thinking. What magic should he learn? He is not lacking in attacking, and he is also very good at defending. What he lacks now is a binding magic. Logically speaking, magic chains are binding magic. But after the evolution of a powerful god-level ability, the magic chain is also more aggressive, lacking the restraint ability. Without any hesitation, Li Xuan spoke. I want to learn the crimson chains of Sterak. Li Xuan said. It's beyond my expectation that you chose this kind of high-level magic. Modu said with a smile. Generally, magicians are pursuing lethality. Li Xuan, this kid, is thinking about making up for his shortcomings. Not bad, not bad. Have a future. Since you said so, well, I will give you this magic. Modu said with a smile. Talking. Modu's strength moved. The crimson energy belt appeared directly in his hand. This belt is as thick as the lasagna sold in the restaurant, but it is blood red, with dark red energy shining on it. Li Xuan could feel the amazing and weird power emanating from it. This is the Scarlet Chain of Sterak. Do you know why it is called this name? Modu asked very seriously. This magic is borrowed from the powerful dimension Mephisto, the power of Sterak, hence the name. Li Xuan spoke seriously. This magic is not much better than magic chains in essence. The reason why he is powerful is because he borrows the power of Satorik, a big man in the Marvel world. It can be said that magic is just a carrier, and the power of Sterak is the essence. That's right. This magic borrows the power of Sterak, so this magic is powerful, but it is also very dangerous. Sterak is not a good-natured god. Generally speaking, ordinary magicians will not learn this dangerous magic. You are an exception. Modu said very seriously. Let me tell you about the energy structure and power operation of this magic, and more importantly, how to communicate with Sterak and use his power. Modu said something, and said all these things very carefully. In fact, there is nothing complicated. The main thing is how to use the power of Sterak. Think carefully, this magic is not so easy to learn. Generally, a senior magician, it's not bad to master this magic in 3 months. Don't be nervous and learn slowly. With the power of Sterak, it's not that easy. Modu said. I understand. Li Xuan nodded and said while thinking slowly. Ding. It is detected that the host is learning the divine magic. Sterak's Scarlet Chain, the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered the Scarlet Chain of Sterak. The system beeps. Li Xuan only felt that the originally somewhat complicated magic was mastered by him like a cocoon. The original very complicated magic structure is now like Lego blocks, easy to understand. Li Xuan looked up. Stab it. There was a soft sound. Scarlet light appeared in his hand. 5 scarlet forehead girdles appeared between Li Xuan's hands. Modu. What's happening here? Scarlet Chain Li Xuan learned. I ride a horse. Modu stretched out his hand, pointed at the magic in Li Xuan's hand, and was speechless for a while. Why? Why is that? How could Li Xuan learn the Scarlet Chain? It's not scientific. This is a magic that can only be learned by communicating with a god-level existence. Compared with ordinary magic, the difficulty is much higher. Kamar Taj's magic, all borrowed. What they are good at is borrowing the power of cosmic nature and other Mephistos. This is why their magic is so powerful. But this also makes magic learning very difficult. Gods are similar to ordinary people. Some are willing to lend their strength, and some are not. And it also depends on whether other people think you are pleasing to the eye, before deciding whether to lend you strength. Therefore, learning this kind of magic is very difficult to learn. The biggest difficulty is to communicate the rules of the gods in the dark and use their power. The average magician needs 3 months. If you and Sterak are not compatible, it will be troublesome, maybe you will never learn this magic in your life. Kamar Taj Fastest History, created by Caecilius. It took him a full year to learn this magic. What about Li Xuan? It took 1 second, 3 seconds. Modu couldn't help but twitched in his heart. This is genius. This is evildoer. Mirror dimension. Modu immediately lived in Bungbu. What the hell is going on? Why can Li Xuan learn this level of magic in a second? Is that human being? Modu finally withdrew his hand. The hand behind her almost twisted the flesh off her waist. How did you do it? Mordo took a deep breath and said. How did you do that? Is it difficult to learn this magic? Li Xuan wondered. Modu. Aldridge. Is it hard? Aldridge, who was watching from the side, wanted to cry but had no tears. Listen. Listen. Is this speaking human language? He has been studying magic for decades, and he still hasn't learned it yet. This is not difficult. This is extremely difficult, isn't it? Aldridge wished he could beat this pretended kid to death. Modu is not much different. This kid is really good at pretending. Even more irritating. They still have the capital to pretend. Are you angry? Mordo finally knew why Aldridge felt that he couldn't teach this kid anymore. He thinks. If this goes on, he may soon be drained too. Modu couldn't help trembling in his heart. But in the end he stabilized his emotions. Not bad. You really are a genius. However, the first time you learn, you will grow the fastest. Stabilize first and see if the power of this magic can be strengthened. Modu spoke again. I'll try, big magician. Li Xuan realized it carefully. Sure enough, in this magic, there are many things that he doesn't understand, and they quickly become his own. Ding! It is detected that the host has a new understanding of the divine magic. Sterak's Scarlet Chain Tour, and the god-level ability produces a critical strike. Your Sterak's Scarlet Chain has mutated. The system beep sounded again. Li Xuan felt that many mysterious things entered his mind. He has a deeper understanding of the energy and structure of magic. He also had more ideas on how to communicate with Sterak and borrow more energy. Modu, magician, what you said is really good. After careful study, I really have a deeper understanding of the Scarlet Chain of Sterak. Li Xuan said excitedly. Now it was Modu's turn to be confused. So fast. So soon you have a new understanding. I mean, are you serious? Mordo took a deep breath. In that case, let me show you. Please give advice from the big magician. Li Xuan said respectfully. Next moment. The spiritual power in the body is constantly surging. The red rune emerged directly, like flowing water, appearing in Li Xuan's hand. Next moment. 2 red belts appeared in his hand. Now the belt is half a meter thick, but it looks like 2 wide cloth walls. It looks very mysterious with full of runes engraved on it. Not only that. Suddenly. A crack with huge amounts of cracks suddenly opened in the sky. The scarlet energy poured out and directly injected into Li Xuan's magic. All of a sudden, the scarlet chain that Li Xuan used became very powerful. Modu watched the scene, his eyes suddenly widened. This is not true, is it? Divine power and fusion. I can still see this scene in my lifetime. Is this kid really Sterak's own son? Modu murmured. The scene in front of him really challenged his cognition a bit. If the others all rely on the power of Sterak. When it came to Li Xuan, he robbed Sterak directly. This is an infusion of divine power. Directly and permanently enhance the power of Li Xuan's magic. In the historical records of Kamar Taj, it appeared 2 or 3 times. Everyone who can cause this scene is a legendary magician. They have studied a certain magic for an unknown number of years, and pushed it to the extreme. Those dimensions, Mephisto, will descend with great power. But what about Li Xuan? How long is this? After a few seconds of comprehension, you have studied magic to the extreme. What the hell is this? Is it still unreasonable? He originally thought that everyone has a limit. But Li Xuan told him another truth. Some people, ordinary people can't compare. There is no such thing as a limit for them. Modu thinks, Li Xuan is such a pervert. Modu took a deep breath and spoke. Shuan, this is the infusion of divine power, it should be able to enhance your magic power. Come and attack me, let me see how much your Styrax Scarlet Chain has been improved. Li Shuan was also very curious. To what extent has his magic reached? Anyway, this is also binding magic, not much offensive. Excuse me. Li Shuan saluted respectfully. Speaking of mental strength. The scarlet magic belt, which seemed to be two pieces of cloth, was bound towards Modu. It's just a matter of seconds. Modu was directly tied tightly, like a bug, and could only wriggle on the ground. Big magician, are you alright? Li Shuan asked. I'm fine. It's just your magic. Modu didn't even know how to describe it. He didn't know what happened to the infusion of other people's divine power. But this kid's divine power infusion effect is too abnormal. Modu feels that this magic is simply invincible. The original Styrax Scarlet Chain was nothing more than an action that could restrain people. But now, Li Shuan's magic is not limited to binding abilities. Modu now feels that his magic can't be used anymore. Not only that, the body also seems to be 7 times a night, full of a feeling of idleness, and there is no strength at all. All the power in him was actually sealed by Li Shuan's Scarlet Chain. This is too abnormal. Can a binding magic be so powerful? There was a storm in Modu's heart, and for a while, he even forgot to move. Big magician, how are you doing? Li Shuan snapped his fingers, and the scarlet magic disappeared immediately. Li Shuan directly supported Modu and stood up. Now. He looked at Li Shuan with a strange expression. You boy, it's really unexpected. The power of this magic is unusual. Modu held back for a long time, then spoke directly. Can it be normal? He's a big magician. After being trapped by this scarlet chain, he couldn't use his power at all. It's like saying, if Li Shuan's magic works, that one magic can abolish the combat power of a big magician and let others slaughter him. What a perverted thing this is. Great magician, after decades of practice, one magic is useless. This is too abnormal. This kid Li Shuan. Not human. Modu couldn't help crying in his heart. Li Shuan practices magic in the mirror dimension. Some people are not as calm as him. In Kamar Taj, where the Chamber of Secrets is located. Caecilius' face was very ugly. Unexpectedly, this fellow Modu actually won against them. This guy Li Shuan became Modu's apprentice. This made Caecilius very unhappy. HMPH, this guy is strong because he came early. Caecilius snorted coldly in his heart. However, I don't have time to teach students recently. It's time to investigate that matter. Caecilius made a decision in his mind. When he was looking up books in the library recently, he suddenly discovered a secret. The Sorcerer Supreme of Kamar Taj, as if absorbing the power of the dark space. When I first came into contact with this secret, Caecilius was in complete disbelief. After all, this is the respected teacher who has been teaching him to stay away from darkness and protect the natural law. But now, what he found was completely different from what Ancient One said. I have to figure it out. Did Ancient One really fall into the darkness? Did it really absorb the power of darkness? She asked me to come to the power of Kamar Taj, is it pure? The more Caecilius thought about it, the more confused he became and became more and more gloomy. I have to figure it out. After Caecilius hesitated for a while, he made up his mind. He walked out of his room directly and walked into the library. Ignore the magicians who say hello. Directly on the bookshelf, I found a book locked by a chain. Open this book. Caecilius quickly found what he said he wanted. Tear. Caecilius directly tore out the contents of these pages. Regardless of putting the book in its original place, Caecilius turned around and left. Get out of the library. Caecilius tore open a portal and disappeared into Kamar Taj. After a while, he appeared in a secret room. The expression on his face became very serious. With a wave, the pages torn from the book appeared in front of him. Caecilius read the text of the book word for word. Ancient One is a liar. She has been absorbing the power of the dark space. But never let us touch this great energy, eternal life. Caecilius' face was full of pain. Actually, Caecilius wasn't really a bad guy before, just a bit extreme. The purpose of his coming to Kamar Taj is to save his dead wife and children. Now look at the book in front of you. He immediately saw the hope of resurrecting his loved ones. Eternal life, hope of resurrection. Ancient One, why don't you let me touch it? This is the real great power. Caecilius kept talking. If he has this great power, not only can he resurrect his relatives, but he can also have eternal life, true eternity. Compared to the order maintained by Qamar Taj now, this is the truly great order. Think here. Caecilius is no longer hesitation. I started to practice according to the content on this page. The weird runes carved on the pages of the book. This moment unexpectedly appeared in front of Caecilius. A strange whisper sounded beside Caecilius. Caecilius snapped his eyes open. But he found that he was no longer in that secret room at this moment, but in an endless dark space. The method beneath his feet is a crystal that exudes color. Everywhere you look, it's all darkness. Suddenly, a huge amounts of human faces appeared in front of him. Just one eyeball has the size of a mountain, and a powerful dark force surges on his body. That power is incomparably deep and incomparably powerful. It seems that what is in front of him is infinity, is eternity. Caecilius fell to his knees involuntarily. Great Dark Mephisto Dormammu, please accept the service of your humble servant. I am willing to give my all. I hope you can give me endless power. Caecilius called out loudly. Funny, pathetic human. Since integrity requires, then do as you wish. Go, gather your subordinates, destroy the 3 holy places, and I will give you everything you want. Dormammu HTC's voice sounded. Mouth blow. A black streak was directly pierced into Caecilius' body. Ah! Caecilius let out a scream. He felt his body was being stripped and transformed. At the same time, a powerful force was generated in his body. In the center of his forehead, a dark mark appeared. Go, my servant. Destroy the 3 holy places, and I will return your world to eternity. Dedicate your world to me, and your wishes will come true. Dormammu's voice sounded. Caecilius only felt a sudden change in the surrounding environment. It seems to be a streamer, it seems to be a phantom. Opening his eyes again, he was still in that secret room. Is this a hallucination? Caecilius couldn't help but speak. But, when he was concentrating, suddenly felt that the strength in his body had directly increased by 50%. Even if Modu appeared in front of him now, he could easily defeat him. With a wave, the surrounding space flows like flowing water. The real space is constantly moving according to his will. A frantic expression crept across Caecilius' face. Ah, it's true. What a great power. What a powerful vitality. Caecilius couldn't help shouting. This is the power that can only be mastered by cultivating the mirror dimension to the extreme. Interfere with reality. But now, through the bestowal of Dormammu, he wields this great power one. At the same time, he could feel that there was an extremely powerful vitality in his body. This is what he didn't have before. Ancient One. You hypocrite, you actually monopolize this incomparably great power. You liar. You knew all this, but never told me. Caecilius became extremely extreme. The admiration in his heart directly turned into anger and jealousy. Ancient One knew it, but didn't tell him. This is the hope of resurrecting the family. I dedicate this world to the great Dormammu. In this way, I can resurrect my family and gain endless lives. Caecilius became extremely frantic. After being frenzied for a long time, he gradually calmed down. I'm sure I can't fight Qamar Taj alone, I need strength. I need followers. I need a genius magician, be my help. Black light flickered in Caecilius' eyes. He knew the strength of Qamar Taj. Naturally, he knew that he could not resist this terrifying force alone. He needs help. Enough to have the ability to help. He now has a goal. Caecilius showed nothing unusual. Back from the dark space, he returned to normal again. As if nothing happened. Sorcerer Supreme is not there, and no one knows about the changes in Caecilius. He is as usual. Practice in Qamar Taj. Then, look for opportunities. Finally, after a few days, he found a golden opportunity. Caecilius walked out of his training room and went directly into the library. Then, he saw his target, the talented Li Xuan. This is the most talented guy he has ever seen. If he can become his subordinate, he will achieve his goal very quickly. He is bound to win. Caecilius walked directly to Li Xuan from the library. Li Xuan is looking at the magic book. Seeing Caecilius approaching, he was taken aback. 957. Big magician. Do you have anything to do? Li Xuan said respectfully. He knows what happened next. Just a few years later, this guy became Kamar Taj's number 2 boy, and he went to a guy like Dormammu. It is precisely because of knowing these. Li Xuan was naturally wary of Caecilius. However, he did not show this, and his face was still very respectful. Follow me. Caecilius also said something lightly. Li Xuan hesitated, but still followed. What he didn't expect was that Caecilius directly opened the mirror dimension. Li Xuan frowned and followed in. It's not that she's being careless. Instead, have confidence in your own strength. According to her calculations, on the magic of mirror dimension. Even a big magician is no different from him, he doesn't worry about his own safety. Therefore, Li Xuan followed without any hesitation. Magician Caecilius, I don't know why you summoned me. Li Xuan said with a very respectful expression on his face, and there was nothing wrong with it on the surface. Caecilius didn't say anything, just opened his mouth. I admire you very much, how about being my subordinate? #X. Big Magician, I have already worshipped Modu Big Magician as my teacher. Li Xuan was taken aback and said. What's the matter? Since you can worship Modu as your teacher, naturally you can also worship me as your teacher. I can promise that I will give you more than what Modu gave you. Caecilius said lightly. Well, Big Magician, there are so many Kamar Taj magicians, why are you looking for me? Li Xuan asked. Definitely because of your ability. You are a rare genius, and I, Caecilius, certainly cannot accept mediocrity as my apprentice. Caecilius spoke proudly. Hearing this, Li Xuan was stunned. Good guy. Pretend still depends on this one. Thanks to the big magician's love, but if Modu magician disagrees, it is really inconvenient for me to learn from you. Li Xuan said. Even now that Caecilius is still Kamar Taj's big magician, he doesn't want to have any relationship with Caecilius with silly girls. What if I get involved in the future? He didn't expect it, but unfortunately Caecilius didn't mean to give up at all. It's that simple, I'll tell Modu. He snatched you as an apprentice, I've long been dissatisfied. We have to fight him. Caecilius said something. Then directly shot a beam of light, and communicated with Modu through the magician in front of him. After a while, Modu's face appeared on the virtual screen in front of them. Modu, you stole this apprentice, I don't accept it. Do you dare to make a bet with me? Caecilius spoke without any hesitation. What you up to? Mordo looked wary. Naturally, it's a competition to teach the skills of the apprentice. Each of us will teach him a few spells. When the time comes, we will see who can teach the most powerful spells, and who will this apprentice belong to. Caecilius spoke directly. Why do I compare with you? I have no advantage. Modu sneered. Then what do you say? Caecilius opened the mouth. If I win, you will create an exclusive space artifact for Xuan. If you win, how about I teach him one of my unique magic? Modu said. Can. Caecilius agreed without any hesitation. A bright smile appeared on Mordo's face. Xuan, do you hear me? Practice hard with Caecilius Dafa. When the time comes, let the big magician create an exclusive space magic weapon for you, this is an extremely precious thing. Alright, Caecilius, teach me first, I won't take advantage of you. After winking at Li Xuan, Modu hung up the communication. Do you understand now? You are not important, if I beat Modu. Learn well from me, and you will lose your benefits. Do you agree to the deal? Caecilius said coldly. It's up to the big magician to decide. Li Xuan said. Only fools disagree. No matter who wins, he will earn blood, okay. Besides, he didn't think Caecilius could win either. Otherwise Mordo would not be Kamar Taj's head disciple. Very good. Then I will give you my unique magic, the power of space. Caecilius spoke. While speaking, a black light flashed in his eyes. Looking at Li Xuan, he sneered in his heart. He has mastered the power of darkness and can completely transform magic into black magic. As for black magic, it is completely forbidden in Kamar Taj. You can learn it only if you have a big magician or above. Once Li Xuan learns, everything is beyond his control. If he doesn't want to submit, he also has means to make him submit. Thinking of this, Caecilius sneered in his heart, everything is under his control. Ahem. Look, let me demonstrate it to you first, and then tell you the secret of the space blade. This is a kind of magic that escapes from the mirror dimension. It can manipulate the power of space and become your weapon. Nothing is indestructible, nothing is indestructible. 1.6 Caecilius said something. Pull your hands. An almost transparent weapon appeared directly in his hands. Ding. It is detected that the host is watching the high-level space magic. Space Blade, the god-level ability produces a critical strike. You have mastered the blade of space. The system prompt sounds. Li Xuan felt very clearly that he had mastered this magic. As long as he wants, he can use the blade of space at any time. Move with mental power. A transparent blade also appeared in Li Xuan's hand. Seeing the scene in front of him, Caecilius felt as if his head had been hit with a sledgehammer. My brain is buzzing. What's going on? He hasn't mixed dark magic theory into it yet. How did this kid learn it? What the fool happened? Caecilius is a bit of a bungbu live. His purpose of looking for Li Xuan was actually a bit malicious. He just wanted to secretly teach Li Xuan black magic. Then naturally Li Xuan was slaughtered by him. He is a big magician, Li Xuan is a small magician. Who do you trust? The magician of Kamar Taj? No matter how Li Xuan explained, no one would believe him. When the time comes, he can only embrace the great Dormammu like him. But what I didn't expect was, he hasn't had time to play tricks yet. This kid has learned magic. This caught Caecilius a little off guard. How could he have thought that this kid is so perverted? Caecilius was silent for a long time. This is his unique magic, the blade of space. It can also be regarded as a kind of magic born out of the mirror dimension. Possesses extremely sharp features. At the same time, the difficulty of learning is very amazing. Think about it. Peel off a piece of space debris and use it as your own weapon without hurting yourself. What a difficult thing to do. It requires extreme control over the power of space. It can be said, this is definitely one of the most difficult spells to learn in Kamar Taj. But now, Li Xuan learned it just by looking at it. Does this still make sense? Caecilius took a deep breath and spoke. You show it again and show me. Li Xuan didn't say anything either. With a wave, a transparent blade appeared in Li Xuan's hand. Although the blade is translucent, the existence of the blade can be seen very clearly. The aura is completely restrained, and no aura can be seen at all, but it has a strong sharp characteristic. Li Xuan stretched out his hand and flicked it forward. Pyre. An extremely slight voice sounded. In front of Li Xuan, a mountain peak of about 100 meters was directly and silently cut open. Half of the mountain peak slid to the side without a sound. The section is smooth as a mirror. Caecilius couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Such power. It's not much different from him. This power is indeed the blade of space. This kid actually learned this high-level magic just by looking at it. Is this kid still human? This is a monster. Caecilius couldn't help but the corner of his mouth twitched. Doesn't this defeat all his plans? Didn't he lose his wife and lose his army? No way. We can't go on like this. He still doesn't believe it. Can this kid be so perverted? Caecilius took a deep breath. Not bad. Quote. I didn't expect that your ability is much better than I thought. Now I have more confidence in defeating Mo Ling. A smile spread across Caecilius' face. But, his smile looked very forced. After a while, Caecilius calmed down and spoke. However, if you want to defeat Modu, you can defeat Modu just by relying on such a magic. Well, I'll teach you another magic. Caecilius spoke again. Caecilius felt ruthless in his heart. He still doesn't believe it. Is this guy really so capable? Just watch any magic once. Caecilius decided. He's teaching a complex spell this time, and a little more slowly. He still doesn't believe it. Can this kid learn again? In this world, is there such an outrageous thing? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Caecilius felt a wolf in his heart. He will definitely be able to trick this kid this time. This magic is extremely complicated, even mixed with the power of gods, it is impossible to learn it so quickly. He has enough time to play around with it. As long as the energy structure is slightly changed, the magic can be mixed with dark energy. The power will be greatly increased. But at the same time, it can also be mixed with black magic. At that time, his purpose will naturally be achieved. Look, I'll show you one more time. Caecilius said something. At that time, before Li Xuan could react, he directly used a magic backhand. He wiped his hands. A gigantic blade of space was formed. The blade looks like the two-edged long knife in Thanos' hand, but it is transparent. Both sides are white. However, the blade aura emanating from above is very powerful, just take a look. Li Xuan felt a sharp aura emanating from above. The skin on the face felt a little tingling. It can be seen how terrifying this magic is. This is the high-level magic of the Blade of Space, the Blade of Emperor Weishan. This is also one of my unique magic tricks. Try to see if you can use it. Caecilius spoke with a proud face. At the same time, he was proud of himself. Can this magic be used? He still doesn't believe it. This kid can learn it at a glance. It's magic mixed with deities' power. How many people can learn the whole Kamar Taj? Caecilius really wanted to laugh out loud. Ding! It is detected that the host is watching the magic of the gods. Emperor Weishan's blade of breaking the sky, the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered Weishandi's Skybreaker blade. The system prompt sounded. Li Xuan only felt his head swell. A lot of knowledge entered into his mind. This is a more powerful magic than the Blade of Space. The Blade of Space is a fragment of space, and the blade of breaking the sky contains half of the world. Its power is powerful, as can be imagined. Li Xuan needs to spend strength to use this magic. His formidable mental power suddenly agitated. Reach out and touch. A weapon like Thanos' double-edged sword appeared in his residence. On the blade of this weapon, there is still a powerful force, like a plasma weapon. This is the power of the great Weishandi. The Qian Zhao smile on Caecilius' face suddenly froze. Now, it was as if a fake mask had been put on his face. Anyone can see how out of control he is now. In fact, it is true. What's the situation? This is magic that contains the power of the gods. Can this kid learn it by just looking at it? Are you kidding me? It is. Caecilius felt a turmoil in his heart, as if he saw a monster. It's too exaggerated. It's too exaggerated. Not to mention the deities' power mixed in it, even the light-breaking blade originally, is very complicated. Need to compress a small dimensional dimension. Capturing small dimensions is very labor-intensive. So this is not something that ordinary people can learn in a short time. Caecilius chose this magic because it cost Kung Fu Hall. But this kid, how did you learn it in such a short time? Is that human being? Caecilius, people are stupid. Caecilius was stupid. At this moment, he has a new understanding of the common saying that he loses his wife and loses his army. Black magic was not taught. Instead, he taught himself 2 unique spells backwards. This loss is too great to know. Caecilius is not as generous as Sorcerer Supreme. For his unique magic, he is still very fancy. So far, no one has obtained his inheritance. Now, for Dormammu's orders, he had to impart his own magic. Results now. The magic was taught, but his purpose was not achieved at all. Caecilius wanted to curse. Why is this kid such a monster? But if that's the case, wouldn't he teach magic for nothing? No. Absolutely not. Caecilius gritted his teeth and made a decision in his mind. He decided to teach Li Xuan black magic directly this time. With this kid's ability, he can learn black magic all at once. By the time, Caecilius couldn't help but licked his lips. Black magic is not really taboo. More than a big magician can selectively learn a few. As long as there is enough willpower, demons will not interfere with your thinking. Ancient One has mastered a lot of black magic. Pity. Li Xuan is just a little magician apprentice. Without the Ancient One in Kamar Taj, the promotion ceremony cannot hold 310 lines, and he can only be a magic apprentice. Thus, learning black magic is a big problem. This is Kamar Taj's system and Caecilius' conspiracy. In Kamar Taj, it is a very serious sin to train a magician to learn black magic. Caecilius's thoughts flowed, and he opened his mouth after a long time. To be honest, Li Xuan, your ability is really unique. I have been in Kamar Taj for so many years, you are probably the best teacher in ability. You can learn magic mixed with the power of gods at a glance, hehe, even the former Modu didn't have such a powerful ability. The big magician praised me, I'm just a middle-aged person. In terms of study, it's just a matter of concentrating my attention. Li Xuan said very modestly. Oh, it doesn't have to be. Excessive modesty is pride. In Kamar Taj there is no need to be so humble and show your ability. Caecilius spoke. Li Xuan was noncommittal. There are too many perverts in the Marvel world. Not to mention anything else, those gods are existences without abilities. Even the stupid Thor has amazing abilities. He is nothing now. As a human being, you still have to keep a low profile. Li Xuan thought in his heart. Although he thought so in his heart, on the surface, he was honest. The big magician is right, I will pay attention to it in the future. Li Xuan said. Yes, not bad. However, if you want to defeat Modu with the power of magic, I don't want to give you another magic. You should have noticed that the 2 spells I taught you consume a lot of energy. Caecilius spoke. I've realized it. Li Xuan nodded. The energy consumed is 5 or 6 times that of the equivalent magic. Instead of other ordinary magicians, they are all drained now. Li Xuan couldn't help shaking his head in his heart. The energy consumption of this magic, a senior magician, puts 1, maybe the energy in the body will dry up directly. Fortunately, he has a god-level ability, and his background is very profound. The energy in the body is like Wang Wangyang's Sea, otherwise it would be impossible to use it. He was curious how Caecilius would solve this problem. Immediately, Li Xuan set his sights on Caecilius. Caecilius, magician, do you have a solution to this problem? Li Xuan asked directly. Definitely can solve this problem. I'll teach you another magic trick. It can perfectly solve this problem. Caecilius said with a smile. That's going to be a big trouble for magician. Li Xuan spoke in a low-key manner. Hearing Li Xuan's words, Caecilius smiled even brighter, but on his gloomy face, this smile looked very strange. The magic I taught you is called Magic Power Extraction (BGDI). Through this magic, you can absorb energy from the universe without consuming it yourself. Caecilius spoke. With a smile on the surface, Caecilius was excited in his heart. This magic looks like ordinary magic, which can replenish consumption. But actually, this is a very evil black magic. His main function is not to absorb natural cosmic energy. Rather, deal with people. To deal with enemies, this black magic can absorb all the energy in the human body, and even absorb life force. A veritable black magic. Still very evil black magic. If Li Xuan learns this, he will be completely speechless. I'll show you how to do it again. With your ability, it is not difficult to learn this magic. Caecilius spoke. Talking. Caecilius waved his hand. A white light appeared directly. This light seems to be a ray of light, directly inserted into the void. Afterwards, energy from the unknown space was continuously absorbed into the body by him. Li Xuan stared at this place with all his attention. Ding! It is detected that the host is learning black magic, fatal absorption, and the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered black magic, fatal absorption. Black magic. Li Xuan was taken aback. Caecilius can't afford this guy. He has been in Kamar Taj for 3 years. Although he didn't learn magic, he still knows all kinds of rules and regulations. Caecilius actually taught him black magic. Could it be that at this time, Caecilius has taken refuge in Dormammu? Now he has bad intentions. If it was an ordinary magician, they would never suspect a big magician from Kamar Taj. Li Xuan is different. He already knew that Caecilius was a 25-year-old boy. Naturally, I have some doubts. Teaching him black magic, doesn't it explain anything? Li Xuan's heart moved secretly. Teach me black magic, play routines, right? Then don't let the monster reveal your true colors. The mental power slowly spread out, and the surrounding mirror dimensions began to undergo slight changes. Afterwards, a bright smile appeared on Li Xuan's face. Caecilius, magician, can you demonstrate it again? I don't know much about some things. Li Xuan said. No problem. Caecilius has nothing to do, maybe Li Xuan didn't learn it once. Talking. He waved. A white ray of light emerged and directly inserted into the void minister. Anyone who is a person will understand what kind of magic this is. Li Xuan also had a bright smile on his face, and said. Caecilius the great magician, I learned. Very good. Caecilius smiled. Both of them smiled brightly. In the mirror dimension, Caecilius and Li Xuan face to face. But at this moment, the atmosphere between them suddenly became tense. The two of them stared at each other and didn't say anything for a while. After a while, Li Xuan spoke slowly. Big magician, don't you have anything to say? I think you should have a lot to say now. Oh. What do you think I should say? Caecilius also spoke with a gloomy face. Definitely about magic. There seems to be something wrong with the magic you gave me. Li Xuan said. Oh. What's the problem? Caecilius said lightly. The magic you taught me seems to be black magic. Li Xuan said. Black magic. How did you see it? Caecilius stared at Li Xuan firmly, and said. Big magician, as you say. I'm a genius, and geniuses are always a little bit different. I can still see something unusual. Li Xuan smiled and said. I didn't expect that your ability is better than I thought. You can actually tell the difference between ordinary magic and black magic. I have to say, your perception is very sharp. Speaking of this, Caecilius also sighed a little. Why can he be sure to deceive Li Xuan? It is because fatally absorbing this magic is very deceptive. As he said, this is magic derived from magic power extraction. In essence, it is indeed used to extract the power in the natural universe to supplement the magic power in the magician's body. But, after being transformed by some ulterior magicians, this becomes black magic, which can be used on magicians. There are very subtle differences. It looks like a big magician, the group can see it. However, at Li Xuan's level, he found subtle differences in it. It can only be said that this kid is really talented. Its ability is beyond his imagination. Thought of here. A creepy smile appeared on Caecilius' face. The more genius Li Xuan is, the happier he is. I did underestimate your ability. Unfortunately, it's too late now. Since you can see that this magic is black magic, then you should have learned this black magic. Caecilius spoke. You are right, Li Xuan said. Then what else is there to say? You are already in my grasp. Caecilius spoke. Why? Li Xuan said. What why? Caecilius asked backhandedly. You are a big magician, why are you dealing with a little intern like me? Li Xuan asked strangely. You're no ordinary intern magician. You are a genius magician. The other magicians in Kamar Taj are less than 1/10,000th of yours, so I naturally want to master you. Caecilius spoke. What are you for? Domination of Kamar Taj. Li Xuan said. Small. Caecilius opened the mouth. Li Xuan. You're out of shape. Genius should not be limited to little Kamar Taj. What I want is the whole earth. I will lead mankind to embrace the true eternity. Caecilius spoke enthusiastically. Caecilius is a great magician, it's not that I look down on you. You don't seem to have this ability. Even in Kamar Taj, you are not the best, let alone on earth. Sorcerer Supreme alone, you are no match for him. It's hard for you to make me think it's a wise decision to follow you. Li Xuan spread his hands and said. Ancient One, hee hee. She's nothing but a liar. What she did secretly, you don't even know. But since you don't believe it, I'll let you see the truly great power first. I am a servant of the great Dormammu. Caecilius shouted. As he cries. An extremely evil and dangerous will descended from the unknown space. In the center of Caecilius' forehead, a dark red mark appeared. His eye sockets seemed to have been peeled and painted with black dye. The whole person has become extremely gloomy, not like a good person at all. With a wave, the surrounding mirror dimensions have undergone earth-shaking changes. It seems that everything is under his control. With a thought, the world is overturned. See. Did you see? This is the power of the great Dormammu. This is a truly powerful force, and the Ancient One is nothing compared to the great Dormammu. If it weren't for the 3 holy places left by Agamotto, the great Dormammu would have taken over the earth directly. Come with me, into the arms of the great Dormammu. Caecilius was incomparably fanatical. Behind him, black energy danced constantly, as if it had directly condensed into substance. Li Xuan looked at Caecilius and couldn't help but sigh. What an amazing magician Caecilius, Kamar Taj. In front of him, except for Modu, the other big magicians are not even his enemies. But it is such a powerful existence. After being bewitched by Dormammu, he became such a fanatical believer. Point 00. Dormammu is really harmful. Sorry, big magician. I don't want to follow this lunatic Dormammu and become part of the dark space. Li Xuan shook his head and said. Do you think you have room to refute now? You have practiced black magic, it is an unforgivable sin in Kamar Taj, you will be deprived of power. Yes, the magician outside will believe you or me. Caecilius laughed wildly. I think they should believe me by now. Li Xuan said very honestly. He waved. The mirror dimension suddenly becomes transparent. Outside, a bunch of magicians are pointing here. In. The big magicians of Kamar Taj stared at this place, the expressions on their faces, the surprise mixed with anger, seemed unbelievable. What? Caecilius faltered. Pointing at Li Xuan with one hand, his face was full of disbelief. That's right, big magician, they all saw it. You'd better catch it without a fight. Li Xuan said lightly. However, Caecilius set off a storm in his heart. The state of mind is a little out of balance, and the body is constantly shaking. He only felt a chill spreading directly from his heart to his limbs. This is impossible. How could Li Xuan manipulate his mirror dimension? Why is there such an outrageous thing? He has the power of Dormammu. Besides Ancient One among Kamar Taj, is there anyone else who can break his mirror dimension? How can this be? Li Xuan, what kind of monster is this kid? Mirror dimension. Caecilius stood in midair with a very ugly expression on his face. After half a day, he opened his mouth to speak. You already found out. Pretending to be ignorant. Make Caecilius the big magician laugh. As you said, I have to take care of it anyway. You are a big magician after all. Li Xuan said lightly. In the heart, Li Xuan admired Caecilius very much. This move, if it were someone else, they would probably be caught with nothing. How do others know the horror of Dormammu? Immortal life with Dormammu, that's not immortality, it's torture. Most people don't know this. Therefore, the Caecilius set is still very marketable. It's just that it was Li Xuan I met. Hearing Li Xuan's words, Caecilius' expression became even uglier. I'm curious, 7, how did you spread the news? Caecilius asked with clenched fists. Definitely because of the magic of mirror dimensions. Don't you know that if he has mastered the mirror dimension to a high level, he can also master the mirror dimension of other people to a certain extent? Li Xuan said lightly. Your mirror dimension has reached this level. Caecilius' mouth twitched. He's a big magician, and naturally knows that. The mirror dimension is a very powerful magic. As long as you master it to a certain extent, you can naturally change the mirror dimension of others, and even turn it into a guest. If Ancient One were here instead, he wouldn't be surprised at all. But, Li Xuan. Why? He is a magician apprentice, how can he surpass him in mastering the mirror dimension? Is it because he is a genius? Geniuses are not so perverted. After more than a year of practice, his strength has reached such a level. If he was allowed to practice in Kamar Taj for a while, wouldn't he become the second Sorcerer Supreme? Wouldn't his great cause never be accomplished? No. Can't let this happen. This child must not stay. Caecilius narrowed his eyes, his heart full of killing intent. Li Xuan sighed inwardly when he saw Li Xuan. Caecilius the magician, why do you complicate things? Isn't it good to just grab it with your hands free? I really don't want to fight. Li Xuan said helplessly. Hee. Block the way of the great Dormammu, and you will die today. Caecilius said coldly. Why don't you tell Sorcerer Supreme about that? Li Xuan sarcastically said. You. Caecilius stared and was immediately annoyed. This kid. It's not a thing. Sharp-mouthed boy. Go to hell. Caecilius yelled angrily. With a stroke of both hands. A huge amount of severing blade appeared in his hand. A stride effort. Caecilius crossed a distance of tens of meters and appeared in front of Li Xuan. The severing blade in his hand stabbed at Li Xuan. Big magician, sneak attack is not something a serious person should do. Li Xuan said something. Swiping back, he dodged Caecilius' fatal blow. A transparent brilliance appeared in his hand, and he smeared it directly. Caecilius looked horrified. But after all, he is not an idle person, but a big magician with rich combat experience. I saw his body twisted unnaturally, like a rubber man. Directly avoided Li Xuan's fatal blow. At the same time, his hands were still vigorous, waving the huge and incomparably huge severing blade in his hand, and slashed towards the surroundings. If it is hit by this knife, it will directly end in two halves. Li Xuan held the severing blade with both hands. Wave forward. The two severing blades collided directly. Ding! The ear-piercing sound waves spread out directly from the two of them. Caecilius' expression changed. This guy Li Xuan, the magic he just learned, is not much weaker than him. He doesn't believe it. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Without saying a word, Caecilius made another shot with the severing blade in his hand. Ding! Ding! T! In just a few seconds, their air-breaking blades directly collided hundreds of times. Various harsh sounds sounded in the air. Call! Caecilius jerked back, panting heavily. He only felt a touch of warmth flowing out of his nostrils. Wipe it with your hand, and it's all blood. Caecilius' pupils constricted, and it was the impact of huge amounts of sound waves that caused damage to his body. Li Xuan on the opposite side can be compared. Still so calm and breezy, as if nothing happened. Not affected at all. This kid is such a monster. Caecilius' pupils narrowed again. But he still has no intention of giving up at the moment. He chanted the magic spell in his hand, and a Baijin-colored thunder shot out from his hand. With astonishing power, the thunder made a mess on the ground and reflected it around Ji Yang. Caecilius flew to follow. Li Xuan handled it with ease. With the severing blade in his hand, he stretched out his hand to pick it up, and several white-colored thunderbolts of his directly shattered. Just when a thunderbolt was pierced, the figure of Caecilius flew out directly. Li Xuan had already expected it. Holding the knife with both hands, facing down as a heavy chop. Ding! The harsh voice sounded again. Click! A trail of tears appeared on Caecilius' skybreaker. Then suddenly shattered. The space debris flew out, leaving a scar directly on Caecilius' face. But he didn't seem to notice it at all. His pupils were full of shock. This kid. His sky-severing blade is even harder than his. More condensed. Why? He has been immersed in this space magic for decades to say the least. He has a very clear grasp of all kinds of power. What about Li Xuan? This magic was taught by him just now. Why? Can't beat it. His spatial structure of the blade of severing space is not as stable as that of a beginner. Where does it say that 5.8 is reasonable? What the hell is this kid? Looking at Li Xuan, Caecilius felt a storm in his heart. He's a little skeptical now. Was Sorcerer Supreme so perverted back then? Caecilius took a deep look at Li Xuan. With a wave. A Baijin-colored thunder shot out directly from his hand. The huge amounts of thunder blocked Li Xuan. Caecilius has no hesitation. He waved his hand to open a portal and walked in directly. It's not a good habit to run away if you can't beat it. Li Xuan shook his head. Without any hesitation, I felt it and confirmed Caecilius' spatial trick. With a wave, the space portal opens directly. He also stepped in with one step. Magicians out there watching it all. Stunned. It seems to have witnessed a myth. Call. Caecilius stepped straight out of the portal. Stepped directly on a desert. This is the Sahara Desert. Across Kamar Taj, there is a full distance of half the earth. Should he escape? Caecilius thought so. A golden portal directly opened beside it. Next moment, Li Xuan also came out of it. Big magician, why are you leaving in such a hurry? Why don't we go back to Kamar Taj? Li Xuan said lightly. The clouds were calm and there was no rush. You still dare to catch up? Caecilius looked at Li Xuan very dangerously. Why don't I dare to catch up? You don't seem to be my opponent now. Li Xuan said. It is clear. Caecilius' current strength is because of his top magician. It's not like reaching the level of Doctor Strange, killing the magician in seconds, and being able to pass a few tricks with Sorcerer Supreme. After all, there are still several years before that time. Li Xuan doesn't feel that only he can improve and others cannot. 16 If Caecilius rebels after a few years, it may not be so. Pity. The current Caecilius seems to be really no match for him. But Caecilius didn't seem to think so. Li Xuan, arrogant, will always be a magician's worst enemy. Caecilius said lightly. I'm really surprised that you know this. The corner of Li Xuan's mouth twitched. This guy actually has the face to say this. Doesn't he have a clue of his own? In the whole of Kamar Taj, is there the most arrogant magician than this guy? Doesn't he have any self-knowledge? Caecilius clearly saw Li Xuan's insincere words, and his face became very embarrassed. What a sharp-tongued kid. Before there were those nasty guys, I couldn't let go. Now, it's time for you to see the true strength of a big magician. You don't understand, big magician, what those 3 words mean. I have mastered hundreds of skilled spells and thousands of other spells. Why do you think you can beat me? Caecilius moved forward step by step. With every step he takes, light flashes across his body. Every step he takes, the aura on his body becomes stronger. Li Xuan couldn't help the corners of his mouth twitching. No wonder. No wonder all-powerful magicians are melee masters. With so many buffs, ants can beat elephants. In a few steps, Caecilius cast at least dozens of buff spells on him. Using Kamar Taj's magic urine, borrowing the power of various strange powerhouses, the effect of these gains can be imagined. But the consequences were quite miserable. Caecilius stepped down. Within 100 meters, the sand rose directly into the sky, as if a sandstorm had been set off. You really deserve to be a great magician. It seems that I have to be serious. Li Xuan felt the aura of Caecilius and couldn't help talking to himself. There was a humming sound. A shield appeared in front of Li Xuan. Next. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 3. In a short while, a total of 64 shields surrounded Li Xuan. Caecilius frowned. Divine Sword of Emperor Weishan. Shout out. A Baijin-colored long sword appeared in his hand. There are powerful energy fluctuations rippling above, and a little spark falls from the sky. The sand on the ground was melted directly and became a piece of crystal. Let me see how capable you are. Caecilius was still talking. When the voice fell, he was already in front of Fan. With the Baijin-colored long sword in his hand, he slashed at Li Xuan. Boom. There was a muffled sound. Boom! Exclamation mark. Boom. Li Xuan waved his hand to control the magic shield to block, and took 3 steps back leisurely. Every step, above the sand on the ground, leaves a huge amounts of ripples. As expected of a great magician. The strength has increased by 2 or 3 times, no wonder you are the number 1 magician. Li Xuan said with some appreciation. Caecilius is really strong, but it is a pity that he met Li Xuan, a pervert. For Li Xuan's admiration, Caecilius was expressionless, even a little ugly. The emotions in my heart were not listening. This kid. How could it be blocked so easily? Visandi's sacred sword is Kamar Taj's absolute high-level magic. The power is extraordinary. Sorcerer Supreme once used this trick to kill 10 great demons in hell with 1 sword. In terms of attack, this magic is also the top magic in Kamar Taj. Not to mention, there are countless buffs on him. But this, without him breaking one of Kamar Taj's basic magic shields. What kind of abnormality did this kid associate with the magic shield? Caecilius took a deep breath. Step forward again. With the sacred sword of Emperor Weishan in his hand, he swung it out with all his strength. The old trick was repeated, but it didn't work. Caecilius the great magician. Li Xuan put a heavy emphasis on the 3 words, big magician. Finished. A bright golden chain appeared in his hand, and he waved it directly in front of him. Snapped. A small shield appeared in front of Caecilius. However, compared to the ring in Li Xuan's hand, the ring in his hand is red. Using this ring to block Li Xuan's blow, even Caecilius couldn't help but take a few steps back. The Ring of Ragador. You know a lot of high-level magic. But isn't this shield a little smaller? Li Xuan said something. Without saying a word, holding the energy chain with both hands, he drew it towards Caecilius. 670. Caecilius directly resisted with a shield. But this thing is really too small. It is really useful to resist bullets or things like swords. But to resist energy chains. This thing can bend. Pity. By the time Caecilius realized this, it was too late. Li Xuan controlled the chain and whipped Caecilius directly on the back. Pyre. A puff of white smoke rose. The high temperature that directly melted the metal directly caused a painful expression to appear on Caecilius' face. If you change to an ordinary person. Now the internal organs have been roasted and died. Good thing it's Caecilius. The magic on him had finally worked. Even so, it left a hideous wound on Caecilius' back. The expression on Caecilius' face was very distorted. The facial features are all wrinkled together. The expression on his face was painful, but Caecilius' heart was constantly surging. This kid. So perverted. There is such a Weiwu in every magic chain. If it is replaced by high-level magic, is it still worth it? Looking at the sand melted into crystals on the ground, Caecilius couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. His heart sank directly to the bottom of the valley. Pyre. Bark. The sand on the ground seems to be magma. The surrounding sand is smoking. Even where it cools down, it is red. Caecilius looked even more embarrassed. The robes on his body were a little torn, turning into rags. There were burn marks all over his body. It is clear. Li Xuan didn't stop after the attacking hand, and made more than one attack. But let Caecilius run away. This is the ancient body of the legendary hogs. Looking at the green butterflies still fluttering around, Li Xuan couldn't help sighing. Great magician, there are so many magicians who know it. This is known as the magic of Wadifei by everyone. Definitely one of the strongest support spells in the whole of Kamar Taj. Any magic can be dodged by this trick, it is really abnormal. No wonder being able to dodge his magic. Snort. Your strength is indeed a bit beyond my expectations. However, you will definitely die today. You shall be the lowliest servant of the great Dormammu. Caecilius' eyes darkened. Black mist actually emanated from around his eye sockets. The power of darkness descended constantly, and the wound on Caecilius' body was repairing quickly. The scars caused by Li Xuan were repaired in a short time. Li Xuan was not nervous at all, but had a smile on his face. Big magician, didn't expect to use the whole card here. How much of the power Dormammu gave you is left? Under the obstruction of the ancient magic circle, how much power can Dormammu give you? Li Xuan said lightly. Caecilius, this guy, all his cards were forced out. At the request of Ancient One, Agamotto established a powerful magic circle using the three major magic sources of the earth as energy sources. No powerful creature can enter the earth. Dormammu is no exception. The power of Dormammu on Caecilius should be running out. Caecilius also had a very ugly complexion. No matter how much power I have left, killing you is enough. Caecilius gave a cry. A powerful dark force emerged from his body. Next moment, a black crystal spike emerged from his hand. Black magic. It's not going to work, big magician. Li Xuan couldn't help but sigh. It's disgusting, your face is just like your tongue. Put away your disgusting hypocrisy. Only the strong are qualified to speak of good and evil. Talking. The black spike in his hand stabbed towards this side. This black crystal looks a little purple, and there seems to be some colorful light on it. Li Xuan immediately remembered. In the dark space, there are countless such black crystals, as well as virus-like spheres. This is the embodiment of evil thoughts in the dark space. It is the remnant of Dormammu after devouring the endless world. A hybrid of dark power and evil will. Just looking at it, one can feel an extremely dark power. Li Xuan even felt countless howls on it, as if countless innocent souls were screaming in it. The black mist emitted made the desert at noon look like the cold winter in the North and South Poles. This is why he said this thing is evil. He didn't want to come into contact with such an evil thing. Even if it is blocked, it is very troublesome. Watching Caecilius rushing towards him. Li Xuan has no hesitation. With a wave of his hand. Several shields directly formed a row, blocking Li Xuan's front. Delusion. Do you think this low-level magic can stop me? Impossible. Caecilius showed a sinister smile. Without any hesitation, he stabbed the shield in front of him with the long purple-black crystal thorn in his hand. Click. Pyre. There was a sound like a flame being extinguished. The dark energy on the purple-black long thorns and the energy on the magic shield cancel each other out, making a whining sound. Li Xuan's shield has traces of corrosion. See it. The might of the great Dormammu, irresistible. Caecilius spoke frantically. Li Xuan sighed. It looks like you have a bad memory. Did you forget? My magic shield can not only resist attacking babies. Li Xuan said lightly. Caecilius suddenly seemed to think of something, and his complexion changed drastically. Suddenly, he wanted to step back. Pity. Late. Several shields were attached directly to Caecilius' body. Boom. A mushroom cloud rose directly from the ground. It was like a missile that exploded in front of Li Xuan. That's not all. Li Xuan waved his hand. Several shields flew out again. Boom. 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 Huge amounts of explosion spawned. The energy fluctuations spread to the surroundings, and the ground was lifted up. A small sandstorm formed directly and flew towards the distance. There was even a large pit on the ground that reached thousands of meters. Wait until the flames and smoke have cleared. Caecilius, dressed in rags, appeared in the center. He looked very embarrassed. There are more severe scars all over his body. The heel of the left arm was broken, hanging in tatters on Caecilius' shoulder. At this moment, Caecilius seems to be somewhat stagnant. There was a bit of panic in the eyes looking at Li Xuan. He growled constantly in his heart. 1. Li Xuan is too perverted. It's just a magic shield. Just a magic shield. Caecilius was very complicated and didn't know what expression to do. If he is defeated by a high-level magic, he doesn't say anything. But this is just the most basic magic shield. Even an intern magician can learn it, without any technical content at all, the magic shield that he has always looked down upon. But such a basic, non-technical magic Mwangs has exerted such amazing power in the hands of Li Xuan. The kid's ability. Just like a monster. This is an evildoer. An evildoer who is even more talented than Ancient One. Caecilius felt a little scared. He even suspected that if this continues, even the so-called god Dormammu will not be this kid's match. Cough cough. You. Caecilius' voice was a little weak. Caecilius, magician, you better talk less. Be obedient and get caught. Come back with me. Accept the sanctions of Kamar Taj, maybe you can save a life. Li Xuan said lightly. He intends to cast spells directly to control Caecilius. Don't even think about it. Even if I die, I won't be judged by you. I am Caecilius. Caecilius shouted. All of a sudden, the dark power surges. Darkness is a force of nature. Light and darkness are just a phenomenon that exists in nature. But, when the darkness has a master, it has a will. Darkness becomes a force of evil. After Dormammu became the lord of the dark space, he devoured countless worlds. Before these people died, they left an amazing will. The wailing of countless creatures before they died, one can imagine how evil and terrifying this kind of power is. That's when Caecilius fell into despair. He unleashed the power of incomparable evil. The terrifying will left behind by an unknown number of creatures directly emerged from that piece of black spikes. Li Xuan felt a buzzing in his head. Amazing will. A terrifying energy tide was formed. In the big pit, the air seemed to be surging. This is a powerful spiritual force rippling in it, as if it had condensed into substance. The chaotic voice made Li Xuan feel a little irritated. Dormammu, what an evil thing. To be able to use the will of the defective as a weapon. It's disgusting. Looking at the densely packed figures of programming remnants, Li Xuan couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, it was him. If it were an ordinary magician here, he would either turn into a lunatic or directly smash his soul. Since there are only remnants left, why do they still exist in this world? Go home early. Li Xuan said something. The magic shield in front of him, like flowing water, flew towards that side. Boom. 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 All the magic shields around Li Xuan exploded. The explosion caused was stronger than before. The pothole formed has doubled in size again. Impossible. How can you still cast spells? A cry sounded. Caecilius flew straight out of the flames. Surrounding him is a spiritual force that is as substantial as it is. Click. The spiritual power armor on his body was directly shattered, and those remnants returned directly to ashes and dissipated directly. Caecilius stared at Li Xuan firmly. He feels very ridiculous now. Ordinary magician, under this attack. I am afraid that the soul will dissipate in an instant. Li Xuan can also use magic. His soul can drink your strength. How determined is he? As BGDB Guo said, learning magic quickly is the foundation of becoming a strong man. Such a strong will is naturally the root of the strong. This guy. If nothing else, he must be another strong man. Even become an existence beyond Sorcerer Supreme. Caecilius is now firmly convinced that this guy cannot be let go. Caecilius felt ruthless in his heart. Absolutely can't let this guy go. Otherwise, the plan of the great Dormammu will definitely be hindered. Caecilius made his decision. He knelt down directly on the ground. Great Dormammu, your humble servant, I beg your strength. I will offer my humble soul and ask you to come. Caecilius chanted loudly. Ask God to descend in front of me. You think too highly of yourself. Li Xuan said something coldly. As he spoke, his mental strength moved. A red belt rushed towards Caecilius. This is exactly the high-level magic, Styrax Crimson Girdle. It has a powerful banning power, and possesses the tyrannical deities' power. It can be said, this is the most powerful magic in his hands. If Caecilius was really trapped by this magic, he would surely be at the mercy of others. Snapped. There was a soft noise. Li Xuan's magic collapsed immediately. A black light appeared directly in Caecilius' eyes. Dormammu. It's really petty. Such a servant is reluctant to give up. It actually came in person. The corner of Li Xuan's mouth twitched. As for Mephisto, there is no card at all. This kind of stuff is reluctant to throw away. Boom. A strong spiritual coercion came, and the ground fell a few feet out of thin air. Li Xuan remained motionless. Want to show him off. Think too much. The holy place is intact, so he is not afraid of Dormammu. On Earth, the power Dormammu can wield, that's all. A mortal would not kneel at the sight of the great Dormammu. Die. A roar rang out. Dormammu's power began to spread around. The surrounding space suddenly distorted, and then began to interfere with reality. Next moment, heaven and earth turned upside down. Endless yellow sand appeared directly in the sky, forming a huge amount of face. It is Dormammu. Dormammu, this is Earth, you better stay calm. Li Xuan said lightly. Die to me. Dormammu had no intention of talking to Li Xuan. The huge amounts of face in the sky was pressed down towards the ground. This is a spatial application of a mirrored dimension. Like a mountain, if pressed down from the sky, the city can be turned into ruins. Snort. Let me also experience the calendar area of Dormammu. Li Xuan snorted coldly. Squat down directly and go down a row. The power of space fluctuates, and the power of the mirror dimension spreads around. A gigantic sand fist with a file size of thousands of meters rose from the ground to the sky. Boom. With a loud noise, the big face of yellow sand in the sky was directly shattered. Snort. If your body is here, I will turn around and run. It's just a wisp of will, what to pretend. Li Xuan sneered. Mortal. Dormammu's big face took shape, and he roared at Li Xuan. A powerful force began to ripple. Li Xuan just stood there, unmoved at all. Wang. There was a humming sound from the sky. A golden light resounded from the sky. Complicated magic patterns began to emerge from the sky, covering the sky directly. No. Agamotto. Ancient One. Dormammu's angry voice rang out. But, the magic circle on this earth was built by the great Wyshandi. This is one of the three gods. The great existence of the multi-universe level. How can Dormammu compete? The golden power emerged, and Dormammu's power was directly suppressed. The sky returned to normal. Caecilius fell from the sky. Li Xuan waved his hand. A red belt rushed up, covered with magical lines of expression. Caecilius was directly wrapped tightly by the crimson belt. The power inside the body is directly sealed. Like a Zongzi, only one head is exposed. You monster. You are definitely not human. Caecilius' weak voice sounded. Joke. Train as a magician, and you'll be able to stand against a wisp of Dormammu's will. This is still human. It must be the illegitimate child of some god. Why would he face this pervert? Kamar Taj. In the solemn central hall. Several big magicians got together, and the expressions on their faces were very ugly. The atmosphere in the hall was even more oppressive like ice, and the few little magicians didn't dare to speak, and the expressions on their faces were very tense. Modu, who sat at the top, was even more frightened and angry. His hands were clenched tightly together, his joints were numb, and traces of his handprints appeared on the chair. I never thought that Caecilius would betray. After half a day, Wang Kai spoke. Is there anything I didn't expect? This guy never respected the teachings of Sorcerer Supreme. He is self-righteous and pursues the limit. Modu directly hammered the chair hard, leaving a deep mark. Modu, there's no need to say that. Caecilius may have been bewitched by someone. I went to the library to read the books of Sorcerer Supreme, and a few sheets were torn to go. Hamel spoke up. It's Dormammu. Then he added, with a serious expression on his face. He said so. The faces of several big magicians became even uglier. Dormammu. That was their Kamar Taj's worst enemy. They have been following Sorcerer Supreme against Dormammu ever since they entered Kamar Taj. Dormammu's mighty, they knew it all too well. But now. Caecilius turned to Dormammu. How could this not make them terrified and angry? Not good. The kid Li Xuan followed. Isn't this kid dangerous? No, I'm going to chase him. Modu stood up suddenly, his complexion changed drastically. This is her new genius disciple. Going to kill Caecilius here, wouldn't everyone be gone? How many days has he been teaching? How do you go? The mirror dimension of Caecilius is indestructible, we cannot break through it. He must have absorbed Dormammu's power. We can't follow their transmission trajectory at all, how to track them? Besides, even if you catch up, can you deal with Caecilius who has the power of Dormammu? Wong said loudly. Mordo was silent for a while. Wong was right. The usual Caecilius he can surpass. But, gaining the great strength of Dormammu, Caecilius will surely become stronger. He really can't beat it. What can he do? He too was silent. For a while, the big magician was a little helpless. They couldn't help thinking in their hearts. If only Sorcerer Supreme were here. The big magicians think of it together. However, how did Li Xuan manipulate Caecilius' mirror space? Hamel spoke up. That, I don't know either. Modu Yuleng also thought of it. Really? How did Li Xuan manipulate the mirror space that none of them could crack? This is a bit unscientific. Manipulates mirror dimension emergent projections. This is not something that ordinary people can do. The most important one. It is to surpass others in the magic attainment of the mirror dimension. How did Li Xuan do it? Caecilius probably didn't have much control over the mirror dimension. But, Dormammu is different. He is the dimension Mephisto, and the Lord of the Dark Space. Control over space. Even the mighty Sorcerer Supreme is not as good. If Caecilius got the power of Dormammu, his control over the mirror dimension should be astonishing. I'm afraid the whole of Kamar Taj, apart from Sorcerer Supreme, is unmatched. But, Li Xuan, this kid, is able to manipulate the mirror space, and Caecilius still hasn't noticed. This is too perverted. The several big magicians looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. This kid is so powerful. This ability, so terrifying. No wonder, this guy Modu rushed to make a move, and even used his own unique magic. So you already expected this? The king next to him said fiercely. Modu coughed and said, is this the time for you to talk about this? Li Xuan is still alive and dead. Modu said loudly. It is indeed the case. But there is nothing we can do. We simply track down that Caecilius. The mirror dimension erased all traces of their teleportation. Hamel sighed. Hear this. Their faces became very ugly. If Li Xuan was really beheaded by Caecilius, they Kamar Taj will really lose a talent that can rival Sorcerer Supreme. How sad is this? Several big magicians are very melancholy. Big magician. Not good. The big magician is bad. At this moment, several senior magicians rushed in. Hearing his words, the faces of several big magicians turned green. What is this saying? At that time, Modu snorted coldly and said. Hurry up, what's the proper way? As the magician of Kamar Taj, calm down, don't you know? The senior magician's face immediately became serious. Yes, big magician, I see. Tell me, what happened? Modu said lightly. That's right, Li Xuan is back. 0. He also brought back the big magician Caecilius. The magician spoke. What? Several big magicians all stood up, no calm look on their faces. They were extremely shocked. It looked as if he had heard something completely unbelievable. The senior magician was stunned. Didn't you just say calm down? Why don't you calm down now? But, he hadn't had time to say it yet. Modu said directly. What are you still doing in a daze? Why don't you go over and take a look? As he spoke, he stood up, took the lead and walked out. Several of their big magicians also rushed to keep up. That way, it looked like something life or death had happened. Soon they came to the teleportation holy place. I saw Li Xuan who was intact and calm, and Caecilius who was tied up like rice dumplings on the ground. Several big magicians twitched their mouths at the same time. His complexion changed. What's happening here? This Caecilius who defected to Dormammu was brought down straight away. Is this kid a monster? How did you do it? Modu frowned and said. How did you do that? Li Xuan was taken aback for a moment and then asked. How did you capture Caecilius? Modu asked. Reporting to the great magician, that's what he did, just defeat him, it's not difficult. Li Xuan scratched his head and said. Big magician. Is this a joke mountain? Teleport holy place. Several big magicians fell into silence. Watching Caecilius twisting on the ground. They looked at Li Xuan's expression as if they were looking at a monster. Caecilius' strength, not much to say. Even among the great magicians, he is at the forefront. Only Modu is his opponent, and the other magicians are not opponents. After gaining the power of Dormammu, the strength of Caecilius is even stronger. Even Modu himself didn't dare to say that he could win against Caecilius in this state. But Li Xuan did it. He didn't just defeat Caecilius in this state. Captured him alive. Capturing alive and killing them is not the same concept. It is much more difficult to capture a person alive than to kill him. Especially someone like Caecilius. After defecting to Dormammu, my mind is a bit unclear. Fulfill Dormammu's purpose with life. It's not impossible, maybe they are still very happy. It is even more difficult to catch this kind of lunatic. But this guy Li Xuan did it. To what extent has Li Xuan's strength reached? Seeing Li Xuan's expression, the big magicians became a little weird. This kid. Abnormal. What if he becomes his own apprentice? As a result, the big magicians looked at Modu with weird eyes. Mordo. What's the matter, little brother? Seeing several big magicians looking at him, he sneered. Why, you still want to compare with me? The important thing now is, deal with Caecilius, what are you thinking? Modu said coldly. Yes, yes. Several big magicians nodded. But the strangeness in the eyes has not disappeared. Moreover, this weird look made his scalp tingle even Li Xuan. Ahem, big magician. Let's deal with Caecilius first, shall we? Sorcerer Supreme is not here, what shall we do? Li Xuan said. If it is changed to be before. Li Xuan opened his mouth, and the big magicians must be careful. This is not their hypocrisy, but normal. But it's different now. Li Xuan proved his great magician strength, and his words naturally gained weight. That's what Xuan said. Mordo nodded. But don't worry, our Kamar Taj also has a lot of magic weapons. It is perfectly possible to imprison Caecilius until the Sorcerer Supreme returns. Hamel said proudly. Kamar Taj was initiated by the great Agamotto. Developed by Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. For hundreds of years, Kamar Taj has produced many legendary magicians. There are countless magical artifacts left behind. Not to mention, Ancient One originally was proficient in alchemy and was able to create many magic tools. Like Sling Ring, it was researched by Sorcerer Supreme and then taught to them. It is not difficult to guard Caecilius. Hear the words of apology. Li Xuan nodded. He never doubted it. In the movie, there is a magic device that directly traps Caecilius. This is not a problem. His concern is, there are outsiders. In the movie, Caecilius has a bunch of men. Magician Modu, you are right. Not enough and there is another problem. Caecilius pulled me into the mirror space, trying to win me over. My suspicion is that among Kamar Taj, he may have other men. If they are bewitched by Dormammu, there is a good chance they have extraordinary powers. If you let Caecilius go, it will be troublesome. Li Xuan said. When the big magicians heard this, their expressions froze. This kind of thing must not be underestimated. What the book says makes sense. This kind of thing, we have to take precautions early. If Caecilius escapes inside, something is bound to go wrong. Mordo said. Several big magicians nodded at the same time. Also, big magician, I think their goal is the 3 holy places. They only need to destroy the 3 holy places. Dormammu would be able to invade Earth, then pull Earth into dark space and devour it. Li Xuan spoke again. Several big magicians were taken aback when they heard Li Xuan's words. I see. That's what they hit. So it's like this, no wonder, no wonder. Modu nodded repeatedly. It looks like we're going to strengthen our defenses a bit recently. Dormammu, since he didn't succeed once, he definitely won't let it go. I think we should recall a few battle magicians guarding in other dimensions. Modu said. Agree. Agree. The other big magicians all nodded. Kamar Taj is a big magician, but there are not only a few of them. For hundreds of years, there is always accumulation. However, there are many big magicians, they are guarding in other dimensions. Now, it's time to rush them back. Several big magicians have made a decision in their hearts. Haha, but don't worry. Don't we have more combat power of the big magician Xuan? This kid's strength is probably close to the level of the legendary great magician. It's a powerful boost. Modu said with a smile. That's right. If it wasn't for the absence of Sorcerer Supreme, we could even hold a promotion ceremony for this kid. This is probably the youngest big magician in the history of Kamar Taj. The king next to him, Sha Sha, who is also rare, smiled. Li Xuan just smiled faintly. You big magicians are absurd. I am far from a great magician, in fact, there is still a big gap. The magic mastered by the big magician is much more than what I have mastered. I think I still have a lot of shortcomings. Li Xuan said very modestly. He does feel that he still has a lot of shortcomings. If it is the same ability. He was certainly no match for Caecilius right now. The magic that Caecilius mastered, played out in number. Nature 5.0 can handle more complex situations. He just took advantage of the god-level ability, which is nothing at all. Li Xuan said so. The corners of the mouths of several big magicians twitched at the same time. Everyone felt that this kid was too good to listen to. You beat Caecilius like this. Still feel like your magic is lacking. You are already in heaven, okay. The combat effectiveness is the top group in Kamar Taj. Still feel bad now. Wouldn't they be humiliated to death? A few big magicians rolled their eyes and didn't want to talk. In the end, Modu spoke and broke the silence. Well, take Caecilius into custody and question him. We still have a lot to do. Hearing this, several big magicians nodded. A large magician defected to Dormammu. Lots to do. Multi-universe. Endless. The number of parallel universes, even the top powerhouses, cannot tell how many of these universes there are. Even if this universe is not counted, a single universe is endless. Dimensional dimensions, pocket universes, deep-level elements, and various additional spaces. The universe of the Marvel world is simply extremely complicated. This naturally caused the various products of this world to be very rich. Ancient One wanders in these universes, looking for various materials, or experiencing various events. To seek further. For level Godfather and other powerhouses, this is not an easy task. So, the incident of Ancient One wandering this time is very long. But, today he is still wandering in the dimension, seeing all kinds of magical things. She suddenly frowned. An inexplicable feeling emerged in my heart. This feeling. It looks like something big has happened. Ancient One frowned. As another powerhouse of level Godfather, he is also a magician. She is very good at spying on fate and predicting the long river of time. But she can have a hunch about everything about her. In a way, she can see the future. Now suddenly you have a feeling in her heart. It must be somewhere related to her, something very important happened. With a breath of darkness, a wave of death. It's Dormammu. Ancient One's complexion changed drastically. Dormammu, Dimension Mephisto. Definitely a very powerful presence. Even Ancient One is not his opponent. She can only compete with this guy by relying on the ancient magic circle on the earth. But now, he can clearly feel it. The dark forces on earth have rioted. Even Kamar Taj's fate is in the fog. The fate of Caecilius is even more unobservable. In the end, what happened? Ancient One's complexion was inexplicable. Caecilius was his disciple. Compared with other magicians, the connection between them is more closely. Now even the fate of Caecilius has become like a fog. What the hell happened? Thinking of this, Ancient One became a little anxious. No, you must go back immediately. Ancient One also has no intention of continuing to travel. With a wave of his hand. A powerful light emerges. A golden portal appeared in front of Ancient One. Without further ado, Ancient One walked in directly. It didn't take long. Passed through dozens of portals in a row. Ancient One passed through an unknown number of dimensions and returned to the Earth. Passed through a portal again. The Ancient One went straight back into Kamar Taj. But no one noticed the return of Ancient One. Even Li Xuan didn't find any fluctuations. Even Kamar Taj's defensive formation did not produce any fluctuations. One can imagine how powerful is the power of Ancient One. A wave. A piece of information was sent directly. After a while, Modu had already trotted over and walked directly into Ancient One's room. Teacher, you are back. Modu said excitedly. Yes, I'm back. Ancient One said with a faint smile. Did you come back because you sensed something big happened in Kamar Taj? Modu asked. There is a reason for that. I feel a dark riot, and the power of darkness is growing. Tell me what happened. Ancient One said lightly. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. Just 2 days ago, Caecilius obtained the method of communicating with Dormammu from the books you left behind. He was bewitched by Dormammu. Modu said angrily. Ancient One was not surprised, just sighed. The kid Caecilius is too extreme. His experience defines his character. The death of his family made him lose his mercy. I used to teach him, don't let his hatred take up all the vision. It now appears that he didn't take it to heart and was bewitched by Dormammu, as expected. Ancient One couldn't help but sigh. Think for a moment. Ancient One spoke again. Tell me where he escaped, and I will bring him back with my own hands and abolish his power. Ancient One sighed and said. I heard what Ancient One said. Modu's face became very strange. Cough cough. But Sorcerer Supreme. Caecilius has been captured. Modu said helplessly. You guys did it. How many of you shot together? If Caecilius had defected to Dormammu, his power should be irresistible to you. Ancient One said with a little doubt. Indeed, we are no match for Caecilius. However, we have a genius in Kamar Taj. He shot and captured Caecilius. Modu said happily. A question mark slowly appeared above Ancient One's head. Genius. What kind of genius is able to capture Caecilius? Ancient One asked strangely. Isn't that a little outrageous? Things that even a few big magicians can't do. Can a genius do it? What kind of genius is this? Ancient One is hard to imagine. Besides, she didn't remember Kamar Taj having such a talent. It's Li Xuan. Modu said decisively. Dash question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark. Li Xuan. Isn't Li Xuan that 800 kid who hasn't become an intern magician for 3 years? How could he be a genius? Also captured Caecilius. Is this a joke? Ancient One is a little weird. She personally observed Li Xuan secretly for a period of time. Knowing this child, the ability is not very good. After practicing for such a long time in this life, I am afraid that becoming a senior magician is very difficult. He is a genius. Is this guy Mordo joking? Modu, are you sure you're right? Are you sure it's Li Xuan's kid? Ancient One asked. Teacher, don't worry. It's definitely the kid Li Xuan. In 1 year, he has surpassed the strength of the big magician. Modu said. Dash colon question mark question mark question mark. Ancient One frowned directly. Is this too exaggerated? A year to become a big magician. When did the big magician become so worthless? After so many years, their Kamar Taj turned out to be a big magician. Only a dozen or so. If only 1 year could become a great magician. How is it possible that Kamar Taj is only such a small magician? Anyway, becoming a big magician in 1 year is a bit too exaggerated. This is simply impossible to happen. Not to mention. This kid is Li Xuan. The expression on Ancient One's face was a little weird. The year she was absent. In the end, what happened? Kamar Taj. Ancient One looked at Modu on the opposite side. The expression on the face is very subtle. Unexpectedly, I only went out for such a short time. Kamar Taj is such a teenage talent. Half a day later, Ancient One still spoke. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan is a real genius. Most magic, he can learn it just by looking at it. I've never seen this kind of genius. Mordo couldn't help but sigh. Really surprising. Even in history, This kind of genius, not many, did not expect to appear in our Kamar Taj. Ancient One nodded. If what Modu said is true, that would be very difficult. She has lived for hundreds of years. Even in such a long lifespan, he has not seen many geniuses of this level. If she is really this kind of genius, she wants to accept him as an apprentice. This is a year for a genius to become a great magician. I don't know how this kid compares to Strange. However, why have I never seen his shadow in the future? Could it be that my prediction was wrong? Ancient One thought in his heart. But it's not impossible. The long river of time is extremely mysterious. Even she couldn't accurately predict future changes. Perhaps because of a small ripple, earth-shaking changes will take place in the future. It is not impossible for such a genius to appear suddenly. But, first of all, she has to make sure that this child is not a puppet pushed by people like Dormammu. Make up your mind. Ancient One spoke. Modu, you go and bring Li Xuan over, I'll talk to him. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. Mordo nodded. Finished. Mordo turned and left. It didn't take long. Modu turned around and came here with Li Xuan. Sorcerer Supreme, I brought you the text. After Modu said something, Li Xuan stepped forward. See Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan bent down very respectfully. Secretly still looking at Ancient One secretly. In his eyes, there is no difference between Ji Yi and an ordinary person. There is no energy fluctuation in the body at all. Even his eyes couldn't see any difference. The so-called avenue to simplicity, I am afraid that is the case. Li Xuan couldn't help sighing in his heart. As expected of the Sorcerer Supreme, the strength is really tyrannical, and the depth cannot be seen at all. When Li Xuan observed Ancient One is also watching Li Xuan. The moment he saw Li Xuan, Ancient One was secretly startled. Compared with the introverted energy in her body, Li Xuan can be said to be sharp. From far away, one could feel the powerful magic power on his body. Mental power is also constantly distributed. Ordinary people can feel strong pressure from him. This kind of power has already surpassed ordinary magicians. This kid. Not simple. Ancient One nodded secretly. If not by Dormammu's mighty power, but by himself. This kind of power is incredible. Ancient One's face softened. Are you Xuan? Don't be nervous, just relax, we don't have so many rules in Kamar Taj. Ancient One spoke. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan arched his hands. Although Ancient One is very kind, Li Xuan can still feel a sense of history. That was the intuition he had when facing powerful creatures. Alright. It's not a big deal to teach you, but I'm a little curious when I hear Modu talk about you. According to Modu, you are a great talent for his Kamar Taj. Can you let me know? It doesn't have to be complicated, just use an ordinary magic. Ancient One said with a smile. Li Xuan nodded. Also ask Sorcerer Supreme for advice. Li Xuan said respectfully. Without further ado. With a wave of his hand. A magic shield appeared in front of him. Ancient One's eyes froze. A wave. The shield in Li Xuan's hand went directly into her hand. The energy structure is stable. The mental power is perfectly coordinated, and the energy flow is very smooth. The rune can't see any problems. And there's a lot of your own understanding in it. In the field of magic shield, your attainments are somewhat better than mine. Ancient One looked at Li Xuan and said. Actually. Ancient One was a bit of a shock. She never expected that Li Xuan could have such a level. She lived for hundreds of years. Even without much effort on the magic shield. That is also the state of cultivation to perfection. Even in the face of a strong person like Dormammu, her magic shield cannot lose the wind. But what about Li Xuan? How long have you practiced? But his magic shield is actually stronger than his. What kind of ability is this? This kind of terrifying ability, even in history, is less than one finger. This kid is truly a terrifying genius. Ancient One sighed in his heart. Shaking his head in his heart, he asked again. Xuan, how long have you been practicing magic shield? Sorcerer Supreme, I have practiced this spell for quite a long time. It's been half a year. Li Xuan said. Half a year. Can you practice magic to this level in half a year? Just kidding. With her vision, she couldn't find any flaws in this magic. You can even feel a little difference and inspiration in it. Such magic. Even if someone said that it was used by Agamotto, Ancient One would still believe it. Is this just the result of Li Xuan's practice for half a year? This is a joke. After half a year of practice, he has practiced magic to this level. Could this kid be a monster? Ancient One was a little shocked in his heart but kept his expression on the surface. Good. You are very good, I think you have become my youngest big magician in Kamar Taj. After a while, I will hold a promotion ceremony for you. Li Jiao. Ancient One said with a smile. Thank you, Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan nodded. Ancient One smiled. But before that, you come here. There's something I need to check. Li Xuan was also unprepared and just stepped forward. Seeing Li Xuan approaching, Ancient One stood up and slapped him without saying a word. With Li Xuan's speed, he didn't react at all. Next moment, the palm of Ancient One slapped Li Xuan's body all at once. Li Xuan felt a trance. Ding! It is detected that the host is attacked by a high-level magical astral projection, and the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered astral projection. Li Xuan. There was no change on Ancient One's face, but he was shocked in his heart. What the hell? She didn't capture the boy's soul all at once. How powerful is this kid's soul? This is the illegitimate child of the gods. Kamar Taj. In the grand view, the atmosphere was a little awkward for a while. Even though Ancient One is Sorcerer Supreme, I also feel a little embarrassed in my heart. This guy Li Xuan was beyond her expectation. Up to now, she has met countless strong people in her practice. Big magicians, legendary big magicians, and even masters in pocket spaces of other dimensions. Her astral projection can be said to be omnipotent. No one can stop it. As long as they are slapped down with one palm, their souls will be slapped out of the body and exist in the state of souls. But now, under one blow, the boy's soul was not photographed. This kid's soul is much stronger than the big magician. The closeness of soul and body is beyond her imagination. She has never seen such a freak. She has practiced for hundreds of years, and this kid is the first one. You boy. Modu still underestimated you. Your ability, I am afraid that in the history of my Kamar Taj, it can also be ranked among the top 10. Ancient One is full of splendor. Sorcerer Supreme is awesome. Li Xuan said modestly. Ancient One is really a big treasure. I just learned a powerful magic. Astral projection is a very perverted magic. Not to mention anything else, just learning in Sleep 807, this can double his time. How did Doctor Strange become so strong so quickly? The contribution of the magic of astral projection can definitely be ranked first. Magician. The more you know, the stronger you are. In addition to learning magic, magicians also need to learn the knowledge of the Emperor. There is a lot of knowledge in Kamar Taj's magical works, general knowledge of universe law, Kamar Taj history of magic, and so on. With astral projection, he will definitely get twice the result with half the effort if he learns this. Suppress the excitement in my heart. Li Xuan said in doubt. Sorcerer Supreme, what did you want to do just now? Ancient One glanced at him, Taguchi said. Just trying to get your soul out. I'm worried about you fighting Caecilius. Child, you have to know that Dormammu's power is very terrifying. It's a force that can corrupt people's minds. I have to check your soul to make sure you are not polluted. Ancient One said lightly. I see. Then you don't have to do it, I can do it myself. Li Xuan smiled and said. Talking. Li Xuan's spirit moved. Li Xuan then felt a very pleasant feeling, and a kind of heartfelt ease came from him. Li Xuan watched his body fall and was caught by Modu. Looking at his semi-substantial body again, Li Xuan felt very novel. Ancient One looked at Li Xuan's eyes, but became a little weird. Modu next to him shouted even more. When did you learn astral projection? You shouldn't be able to touch this kind of high-level magic. It's no wonder that Modu was a little lost. Astral projection is actually a very difficult magic. Because this magic touches the essence of human beings, the soul. So it's a pretty dangerous magic. Accidentally. Maybe it will cause soul damage. Even senior magicians, few of them received this magic. When did this kid learn it? Hearing this, Li Xuan scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Just now. Sorcerer Supreme hit me and I felt the power of it and I learned it. Mordo. Ancient One. You said you learned astral projection just by feeling that energy. This is impossible. Modu's complexion changed drastically, and he lost his voice. Astral projection. But magic that touches the soul. The degree of danger is high, and learning is also very difficult. It took him 5 full years of hard work to become proficient in this magic practice. So far, there is no such ability as Sorcerer Supreme, which can slap a person's soul out of his body. He is the strongest BGCF in Kamar Taj besides Sorcerer Supreme. And to be able to become the disciple of Ancient One can imagine his ability. That's it. He has studied for 5 years. Not proficient yet. Li Xuan learned after feeling the power. What international joke. Are you kidding me, kid? Feel that power and learn. Have you peeked at this magic book? Modu said in a bit of despair. Really do not have. Big magician, I haven't been to the library a few times until now. I don't know Sanskrit. Li Xuan said a little embarrassedly. Most of Kamar Taj's ancient books are written in Sanskrit. There are also a lot of technical terms, even if they are translated into Chinese, he can't understand them. Let alone Sanskrit. How does this make him feel? Hear this. Modu jerked his body, his facial features were crowded together, quite twisted. The whole person is autistic. This moment, he understood a truth. The gap between any human is sometimes really bigger than the gap between a human and a dog. Next to Ancient One, a wave of tidal waves set off in her heart. Although there was no expression on his face, he didn't know what to say. What international joke. Can you learn this high-level magic just by feeling his power? What kind of monster is this kid? This is too exaggerated. Even those legendary magicians in history are not so perverted, right? According to historical records, even legendary characters like Merlin and Nicholas Merlin are not so perverted. This kid is really a monster. The two of them didn't speak for a while. Li Xuan was a little worried. What's the situation? Why are these two people silent? Could it be that something was planted in his soul by that dog Dormammu? This is the Lord of the Dark Space, not to be underestimated. So Li Xuan asked quickly. Sorcerer Supreme, is my soul alright? Why don't you speak? Ancient One looked up at Li Xuan's soul. One look. The emotions that had finally calmed down just now immediately became incoherent. Why is this kid's soul so condensed? I'm afraid this is not much different from her soul, right? The soul is generally linked to cultivation. The stronger the strength, the stronger the soul. She practiced for hundreds of years and gained great power. Even if he has been seriously injured, the degree of condensing the soul is not comparable to that of ordinary people. If his soul appears, it can be said to be like the essence. Li Xuan's soul is almost there. Such a kid who has practiced for more than a year, where did he get such a condensed soul? What kind of ability is this? This kid is the reincarnation of a god. In the Marvel Universe. Want to live. That requires very strong strength. As a person who likes dogs, Li Xuan is naturally deeply aware of this point. So even if no one urges him, he has been practicing assiduously. He didn't want to wait until the cremation snapped his fingers. He didn't resist at all, ability didn't. So, Li Xuan has been practicing. The time of practice always passes very quickly. It has been more than a year since he last met Sorcerer Supreme. After mastering astral projection, Li Xuan's practice speed was much faster again. It can even be described as fast. This time, Li Xuan did not learn any very powerful magic. Mainly in mastering various buffs, and auxiliary magic. This is what he needs to be promoted to a great magician. After all, the great magician of Kamar Taj not only needs to fight, but also needs to teach apprentices. Need to master a lot of things. In a way, every great magician is an all-rounder. Li Xuan's entry time is short, so he naturally needs to make up for his own deficiencies. He even took advantage of this period of time to learn Sanskrit and various ancient characters, and learned a lot of professional terms and dialects. For the ease of reading the ancient books of Kamar Taj. Foreign countries did not agree with the text. The characters used in many ancient books have been lost, and some ancient books are still written in various dialects. Even the people of that era had to be erudite to read these ancient magic books, let alone their later generations. Fortunately, astral projection is very powerful. Even when you are sleeping, you can read and practice. plus the bonus of Li Xuan ability. Li Xuan quickly made up for his own shortcomings in this year's events. He is no longer the kind of reckless man who only knows how to fight. This day, after Li Xuan read a book again, she was going to look for roundness. I have already mastered the things that should be mastered, and I have also mastered a lot of low-level magic. It's time to go to the Mordo magician and learn some powerful magic. Li Xuan was determined in her heart. Only after making up for one's own deficiencies can one better improve oneself. After Li Xuan decided on one thing, he naturally wouldn't hesitate. Immediately got up, ready to look for Modu. Not for a while. He met Modu on the training ground. The intern magicians around looked at Li Xuan with expressions of awe. Modu saw Li Xuan immediately. Xuan, how's it going? Is the foundation solid? You know, how far a magician can go depends not on the magic you know, but on your foundation. If you don't lay a good foundation, your road will not last long. Modu said very earnestly. Teacher Modu, I feel that my foundation has been firmly grasped. I have mastered 80% of the basic knowledge about Kamar Taj. Li Xuan said respectfully. Hear this. The corner of Mordo's mouth twitched. Good guy. This kid really didn't disappoint him, he was as perverted as ever. Kamar Taj's materials are like the vast ocean, and books are like the sand in the desert. This kid actually mastered 80% of it in 1 year. What's on your mind? Fortunately. So long down. Mordo also got used to it a little bit. Quickly recovered. Very well, I know you can face. It seems that the Awakening Big Magician promotion ceremony will be able to be given to you in the near future. Modu said with a smile. I haven't asked you yet, what's the matter with you coming here this time? Modu asked. It's like this, Teacher Modu, I want to learn some high-level magic. Li Xuan said very sincerely. Practicing basic magic to the extreme is certainly powerful. But at the same level, the advantage of high-level magic is not so great. He naturally wanted to learn more powerful magic. Hearing Li Xuan's words, Modu was also taken aback, and then spoke. No problem, it's about time. Magic with the power of gods is the most powerful. Come with me. Mordo nodded. Let these trainee magicians practice on their own. Modu opened the mirrored space and walked in with Li Xuan. After the two people entered the scene space, Modu asked. Xuan, I don't know what magic you want to learn. The amount of high-level magic is not too small. The sacred sword of Emperor Weishan. Li Xuan said without any hesitation. This is Kamar Taj's stronger magic, which he has coveted for a long time. This is one of the most versatile magics. Very easy to use. And because of the great sacred power of Emperor Weishan, for some creatures, Weishandi's sacred sword also has a damage bonus. It can be said. This is definitely the kind of magic most great magicians need to learn. Li Xuan is no exception. Good. Then I will teach you the magic. Mordo nodded. I'll show you how to perform it slowly first. The energy structure of Emperor Weishan's sacred sword is not difficult, what is difficult is to restrain the power of the great Weishandi. While counting, Modu's mental strength moved. A powerful force emerges from his hands. A Baijin-colored weapon flickering with sparks appeared in Mordo's hand. But, it is said to be called a holy sword, but in fact it looks like a big knife. Li Xuan didn't care either. In the beginning, the swords were all about the same. He observed carefully, watching the energy flow on the magic. Ding! It is detected that the host is learning the magic of the gods, the sacred sword of Emperor Weishan, and the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered the sacred sword of Emperor Weishan. A message of incomparable profound rice appeared in Li Xuan's mind. He doesn't have the slightest hesitation. Just a wave of hands. A very dazzling Baijin-colored light appeared in Li Xuan's hands. A large number of sparks fell from his magic, which seemed to be of extraordinary power. Modu watched and smiled without saying a word. Mock up. He has adapted. So what if you can learn magic quickly? This kid is a pervert, no matter what happens, he will not be surprised. However, just at this time, a crack suddenly opened in the sky. Haliong's Baijin-like divine power poured down from the sky as if he didn't need money, and poured it into Li Xuan's sacred sword of Emperor Weishan. Mordo. The floor beneath his feet shattered. Plus. Weishandi, what do you mean? The same disciple of Kamar Taj, how can you treat them differently? He remembered that when he practiced this magic, it was obviously not like this. He borrowed a little energy, which was extremely embarrassing. Very difficult. This is what Li Xuan looks like now. Is this kid the illegitimate son of Emperor Weishan? Mordo squatted directly on the ground. Closed up. Mirror dimension. When Modu was autistic, Li Xuan is experiencing magic. After learning this magic, Emperor Weishan gave him a lot of tyrannical power. For Weishandi, these forces may not be anything. But, for Li Xuan, this power is very terrifying. After the transformation, the energy in his body instantly increased by 30%. He is not a cat or a dog now. After practicing for another year, Li Xuan is definitely the most powerful big magician. None of them. Li Xuan felt it. Now even Modu is not his opponent. The magical power in the body is also vast and incalculable. But even so, his power suddenly increased by 30%. It is conceivable how terrifying the energy that descended on him just now was. Emperor Weishan is really enough to save face. Not bad, not bad. 6-7. Li Xuan is very satisfied with this. Modu next to him was still drawing circles on the ground. Although he had made some mental preparations, he still didn't expect it. Li Xuan is such a pervert. The divine power borrowed is directly frightening. This Weishandi, the difference is too obvious. Modu couldn't help but slander in his heart. He is Kamar Taj's big magician anyway, one of the most powerful people in Kamar Taj. The divine power that can be summoned is not 1/10,000th of that of Li Xuan. How could he not be out of balance? Fortunately. Been with Li Xuan for such a long time. Don't say anything else. It is his mentality that is much better than before. Even though Li Xuan was a little out of balance when he saw this perverted thing, he quickly recovered. Modu took a deep breath to calm himself down, and then spoke. Xuan, I have no doubts about your ability. Such a powerful magic, you can learn it in the blink of an eye. However, let's take a look at the power of your magic. Not all magic can exert the most powerful power. Li Xuan nodded. Makes sense. The same magic, when used by different people, has different powers. Li Xuan wanted to take a look. How powerful is his magic? Since the teacher said so, I will give it a try. Li Xuan also nodded secretly. Think here. Li Xuan is not in the hesitation either. The magic power of the whole body was mobilized. Immediately. The breath on Li Xuan's body exploded suddenly. All the clouds in the sky were directly dispersed. Modu next to him looked terrified. Mirror dimensions are reflections of real space. Everything is no different from the outside world. This kid, Li Xuan, is able to erupt such a powerful force in the mirror dimension. Didn't it say? Does he do the same outside? Modu couldn't help the corners of his mouth twitching. A year's work. This kid's strength has become stronger again. He felt that even the current him might not be his opponent. Pervert kid. Modu couldn't help cursing secretly in his heart. But, immediately he was happy again. This kid. It's his apprentice. The stronger he is, the more face he will face. Thinking of this, Modu couldn't help but smile on the corner of his mouth. But, next moment, the smile on his face turned into horror. The facial features were all distorted directly. In an instant. The sky is bright. The entire sky was filled with Baijan's light. It seems that there is another huge amounts of sun in the sky. Just feeling the power makes people tremble. Boom. Click. A crack with huge amounts of cracks opened directly in the sky. Mordo couldn't even see the edge of the crack. It was as if the world had been torn apart by a powerful force. At the same time, Kamar Taj. Suddenly, it was also illuminated by white light. The whole world has become like daylight. Ancient One, who was teaching the practice magician, suddenly raised his head and looked towards the sky. A moment of effort. Ancient One appeared directly in the sky. She watched helplessly as a wave of sword energy shot up into the sky. It seems that everything in this world is irresistible. This power. Is it the sacred sword of Emperor Weishan? But what's the matter with this divine power? This time even Ancient One couldn't help the corner of his mouth twitching. God's situation. The content of this divine power. Is it too exaggerated? Is this a joke? She has practiced for so many years and is also the direct successor of Agamotto. But, the divine power she gained was just that much. When casting magic, the power of the gods is used, the amount is only so much, and the power is naturally that little. But what is the situation with the sacred sword of Emperor Weishan? The amount of this divine power. It is only a lot more than what she has borrowed over the years. Throughout Kamar Taj. I am afraid that only that kid has this kind of power. Li Xuan is really getting more and more perverted. This kid, can't he really be the reincarnation of some god? Ancient One couldn't help thinking of it in his heart. If there is no relationship with the gods, how could it be so perverted? I really don't know how far this kid can go in the future. Ancient One couldn't help but think in his heart. The noise Li Xuan made this time. But it is not limited to Kamar Taj. A Baijan-colored sword energy, like the second sun, appeared directly in the sky. Half of the earth is illuminated by this incomparable light. In this direction, a dozen satellites were directly evaporated. This Baijan-colored sword energy is still flying in space constantly. I'm afraid it will only stop when something gets in the way. Shield. Nick Fury looked at the report in front of him with a very ugly expression on his face. Can you tell me what this means? Inexplicable energy erupts in the Himalayas, half of the Earth can be observed. Conservatively estimated, the energy index is equivalent to the explosion of a small atomic bomb. Is this a joke? Nick Fury said loudly. On the other side of him, Hill's expression was not good. Actually, we don't know about 4.7 either. We don't know what this is for you. Or some newly researched weapon. Or an alien creature. We just don't understand it. The burst of energy is so fast and single, we can't repeat the research at all. Hill spoke. I think it's something made by those mysterious magicians. This unknown force is not the first time. Nick Fury said slowly. On his face, there was deep fear. It would be horrible if this was really the work of those magicians. During the New York War, the power erupted by this group of magicians is terrifying enough. Now it's even more exaggerated. This is simply a humanoid nuclear weapon. Is this really the power a man can possess? Nick Fury didn't want to admit it. At that moment, he actually felt a little terrified. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel.